Order, please. And Miss Madeline, would you do a roll call, please?
Trustee Craven?
Here.
Trustee Morgan?
Here.
President Pro Tem Little?
Here.
President Kildee?
Here. Okay, flag salute. I'm going to ask Mrs. McDonald, or I'm sorry, Mrs. Craven, would you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Place your hand over your heart and repeat the pledge after me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. City Manager, or any department heads, any amendments to this agenda that anybody is aware of here?
No amendments.
Okay. Public comments for the library. Seeing no one make a mad dash, we're going to go down to item 3, and it's the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second?
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes 4-1. And let's see, that brings us down to...
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Morgan.
We have someone now here present, that is present.
McDonald is here. Great. Okay, that brings us down to comments from the staff. Do you have any comments tonight, Barbara? Do you have anything you'd like to share with us, or anything? I know we did get this.
Is that on?
Yeah, we'll have to turn that on.
Mike?
Mike, could you turn?
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Thank you. Just very briefly, tomorrow I will be presented with a grant check to establish a veteran book club, and that grant check is coming from the Ventura County Military Collaborative. So we're quite excited about that.
Wow.
We piloted a veteran book club on behalf of California Humanities last year, and now the community has asked us to continue it. And also, just a reminder, look at your newsletter. It has been now delivered to every home in Camarillo. So much going on the next 2 months. Thank you. Any
That's
questions?
Great. Any questions? Boy, this is quite a newsletter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like the color.
That's-
Yeah, that's really nice. That pops. Good. Thank you. Any
Thank
questions
you.
for Barbara?
I got a question.
Yeah,
What-
Mr. Little?
This Camarillo Reads, is that starting up soon? Or
Yes, that has started. We have the books out. I think we have 1 or 2 left. They're circulating. People are reading it. People are walking around town with it. I've seen it in their arms. And our big kickoff for that is Saturday, April the 9th. We have a mariachi band, a Latino business expo, folkloric dancers coming. It's going to be lots of fun.
April 9th?
April 9th,
At the
Saturday.
library.
At, I believe it's let me just double check that really quickly. It is from 11 a.m. until 2.
11 to 2.
Oops.
Okay,
Any other comments?
thank you.
Okay, any comments from any of the library trustees? Any comments from any of us?
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, with that, this meeting stands adjourned.
I'll call the Camarillo Sanitary District Board meeting to order and ask the record to reflect that all board members are present. Are there any amendments to this agenda?
There are no amendments.
Public comments? Would anyone like to speak to the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move to the consent calendar.
Move the approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. And no departmental items? There are no departmental items, no legal items. Comments from staff?
I don't have any. Dave, do you have any?
No comments.
Okay.
Comments from board members? Meeting's adjourned.
Camarillo City Council, please come to order. Let the record reflect that all members are present. Do you have any amendments to the agenda, Mr. City Manager?
No amendments.
Presentations, there are none this evening. How about the consent calendar?
Move the approval.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion for approval. Any other
second.
comments on the? We have a motion and
I'd
second.
like to ask
Mr.
a
Little?
question with regard to the item G.
That's what I was going to ask. Go ahead.
Well, it might be, I don't know whether it's going to take more than,
Did you want to pull it?
I think I would. I
let's-
would like to pull it.
Let's pull that and be in Public Works. It'll be item number 6, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so item number 6 would be,
I'll change my, I'll amend my motion, move the approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item G,
okay.
which is being moved to Public Works.
It's okay with a
I'll
second?
second that with the change.
Okay, please vote. That motion passes 5-0. Now we can come down to item G on Public Works.
I had a couple questions. First of all, I was interested to know how much money we're talking about adding $50,000. I was just curious how much money we've spent to date on this. Is there any?
And
So far to date, and I believe since February of 2014, $265,225 has been paid to Furman Group for their services to date.
And reading the report, it seemed to me that I might have misunderstood, but it seemed to me that we're trying to get legislation even introduced into the Congress to allow us to get some money, as opposed to trying just to get some money from current legislation. Is that right?
That's correct. It's a combination of efforts. Our Deputy Director Lucy McGovern can fill in a few more details on the current status.
I'd like to have some more information.
I would too. I was going to pull it also.
Okay. The initial reason that the city had hired the Furman Group was because there was some initial legislation as part of the WRDA, or Water Resources and Recovery Act, and there was going to be some funding attached to that. So we were trying to line ourselves up to have the desalter as part of that list of projects. That act got approved last January, but it did not have any kind of funding attached to it. And some guidelines were supposed to come out of that, and things got delayed, and there was nothing really moving on it. So we went ahead and we're part of a group that the Furman team led of water agencies on the federal drought relief legislation, and it would be part of the Title 16 Bureau of Reclamation. And that is still underway, so there could be two potential sources of funding once those two, the WRDA gets funding, and then the Title 16 gets approved, which is expected this summer.
Well, if I understood, we've already spent $260,000 on this project, and the $50,000 this time around only carries us to June of this year. Is that right?
Yes, we were trying to align ourselves through the end of this fiscal year.
Seems to me we're spending a lot of money for little or nothing to show for it up to now. I just wonder why we're...
Other efforts that the Furman Group has helped us with is we're actually currently have applied for a $1 million grant on the Water Smart efficiencies, and that grant is currently being processed, and we are supposed to get a response on that $1 million grant by the end of this year, fiscal year. They've also helped us in, there was a proposal by President Obama to get rid of the municipal tax exempt bond capabilities, and we joined up as part of that effort to try to not have that approved. So that they helped us with that also. So there's a couple of kind of indirect benefits that we've gotten over the last 2 years because of our efforts as being part of the water kind of municipalities within California.
Any other questions, Bill? Because I got one more.
Well, it just seems to me that we're spending a lot of money and having very little to show for it.
Your Honor, if I could maybe add a little more information to help explain.
Go ahead.
Of course, as we've experienced and know in Washington, bills move slowly, getting on the list and getting approved and getting grant funding moves slowly. And the process has been in play for over a year. The only way to really have a seat at the table and to have a chance to get on the list to receive a federal grant in this particular program is to have a lobbyist who has clout help us get the message to the right people that we have a good project. Not only do we have a good project, but we're part of a group of good projects in Southern California trying to address the drought that has gained some attention. So the Furman Group has helped to raise the awareness of our project to some key players in the ultimate decision-making process of when we expect some type of grant to be approved at the federal level. Now, there are no guarantees. However, if we are successful in what we're reaching out to try and accomplish, is we could receive a grant for $25 million to pay for half of the cost of our desalter. And that's part of what this investment is about, is keeping us in the process until there's ultimately an outcome later this year or next year. We do have the Furman Group scheduled to, I believe, the second meeting next month is a study session to come and lay out in more detail what they've been working on, what they've achieved so far, and getting us queued up to have a potential at the $25 million, and then to what the next steps are. So we will bring more detail to you next month, but it's a complicated enough process to deal with the federal funding that I think your answers would be more clearly answered by the Furman Group, who are experts at this, than rather than have us try and answer everything tonight.
That was one of the questions I had on this. Can we get them here so we know what's going on? We know, it takes a long time for that kind of a loan, that kind of grant takes time sometime. But we still need to know who we're paying money to and what their feelings are and so on and so forth. So it's a good idea to have them come before us and explain where we are. Yes, Charlotte?
This is a 3-month contract. Is there a reason why we're just doing it 3 months at a time, or?
Initially, there was an item that was in the packet back in November of last year, and the thought at that time was that we wanted to find out a way for us to align ourselves on a fiscal year basis versus getting on an off year. So in this effort, up until now, we were just trying to see what their tasks were on a month-to-month basis. We've now reached our maximum authority for that approval, and so that's the reason why we're trying to line ourselves up with getting their whole work plan for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Okay, so February, March, April, I'm sorry, when I read this, I didn't pay any attention to the dates. When does this start? The $50,000 will cover through when?
Through June 30th.
Through June 30th,
Right.
Okay. And then is the plan, if we were to continue with them, is the plan to have something for a year?
Right.
Or keep 3-monthing
Right.
it?
What we're going to do is, the plan is to, based on what happens, the discussion that they have with council, we're going to go back to them and ask them what the concrete milestones need to be reached within the next year, and see whether, make it more of a performance-based work scope, and get some assurances that effort is going to be moving forward. If we were hearing in June that the Title 19 funds are not going to become available for a long time or are close to not even being approved, then that is the time for us to not move forward with their services.
Because it seems that $130,000 a year is quite a bit. I've got other experience with other lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and they don't charge anywhere near that much. And the organizations I deal with think they're pretty good, too.
And if they're doing it for several organizations at one time, that's a lot of money to be doing the same, same lobbying effect.
Okay.
Gotcha. Anyway, it'd be fun to have them, be interesting to have them come and talk to us and answer our questions. So, Jan?
Well, they haven't reported to us directly, and you have them scheduled to do so. Are you keeping tabs as far as what's going on and what they have accomplished and so forth? So you have a feeling that we are getting our money's worth and
Yes, we actually get a monthly update on legislative progress, and that is part of when they submit an invoice, that they've been giving us those updates. They've also come in quarterly and given formal presentations to the management staff folks. So, yeah, we do get regular updates, and we do get communications with them quite frequently.
in your feeling, is this a little bit above the normal lobbying that we're used to having? Are they doing something that would cause them to be more expensive than the normal lobbying?
Go ahead.
Yes, we're getting pretty specialized services. They are continually talking to not just Ventura County and Southern California representatives. They're actually talking and briefing other congressmen, other senators from other states, so that they are actually targeting the committees that are actively working on these bills and getting updates to them and providing them information on it's more targeted to their client projects, and that is what that's their main goal. We're also getting side benefits that if they hear about, let's say, for example, water conservation credits and rebates and water droughts and that kind of money that becomes available. For example, the Water Smart program was not something they were originally tasked to do, yet they made us aware of it, and they went ahead and stepped up and actually prepared the application on our behalf, and are going ahead and moving that effort forward. We submitted the application, but now they're actually talking to the folks that are reviewing the application, so that gets kind of called up to the top of the list, for example, instead of them just reading the application themselves.
So they're helping you with the applications and seeing that through the process versus just the talking.
Exactly.
Your Honor, and not only just seeing it through the process, but they have some clout and good connections in the process. They are well respected by some of the largest water agencies in California and Southern California, and we'll hear more of this next month. The city, our water service area on the compared on the national level, and our project, while it's very important to us, probably does not gain much attention in Washington. However, because some of the largest water agencies in Southern California have some very significant projects, and we're part of that pool now by being with the same lobbyist, we're on the same list. They're talking to the same people about those big projects as they are ours, so we're getting attention along with this group of projects that only this particular lobbyist really can offer. And in fact, because they're already here in Southern California working for some other agencies, this is actually considered a discount over what they normally charge. So it is expensive for us, but compared to what some of the large agencies, I guess, are used to paying, this is considered a good price. And again, the investment is significant for us, but we hope the payout, which could be very much more significant, seems to have a good chance. And if we get anything close to the $25 million, it'll be a good investment.
And if I could add, Tom and Lucy have grilled the Furman Group since we had it here a couple months ago. Between then and now, they have drilled down into some of the details. That's why they are going to be here to present and make their case, so to speak, justify some of the expenses that we've already incurred and that we are anticipating incurring further. The home run, of course, is the $20 million for the desalter. It's a grand slam more than a home run. The nice feature is it can be used retroactively after the plant is built or funds are expended. It does not have to be like most grants awarded before expenses. That's one, as far as we know, that's one of the key features. The other thing is, as Lucy and Tom have mentioned, the $1 million grant that we have an application that's being processed now, we've made it abundantly clear that we want some funding along the way, too. We're not just going after the 20 mil. We want you to keep an eye open for other funding that would be available, that we can use this same allocation, if you approve this further, to justify some of the expense. It's an investment. We want something back along the way as well, not just the one big hit down the road potentially. So they will be here, and I imagine our contract, our agreement, if after the study session it sounds like you want to modify or go in a different direction, I believe the Furman Group is very flexible in how they scope their work and what their duties would be, and I think we can work with what we all come up with actually after the study session and hear what they have to say.
Bill?
I think we ought to just hold off any contract extension until we have this meeting with them in April. I see no reason why it couldn't do that.
I would prefer to go ahead and approve this and ask a lot of questions and then see what we need to do at the end of the year.
End of the fiscal year.
They also
The end
helped
of
us
the
with the
fiscal
$1 million grant that they're working on now.
Correct.
And I'd hate to stop that in the middle of it.
So I will move the approval of item G from the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Other comments, Kevin? Anything?
No, I'm ready.
Please vote. That motion passes 4-1.
With, you have to say who.
Okay, Mr. Little was the one on the other end. Okay, now let's go to the city manager. Legislative platform, which, by the way, I think you did a great job on putting this together again.
Thank you.
In charge.
Did you want to report out, Roger, or did Dave? Up to you.
Oh.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and council members and members of the public. The item before you tonight is to consider adopting the 2016 legislative platform. And the action item will be to adopt the platform per City Council Policy 2.02, legislation and legislative matters. On February 22nd, the Legislative Committee met to review and update the legislative platform. Recommendations from the department heads and staff were considered by the committee. And just to give you a little bit of background on the timeline of bills that were introduced, the deadline to introduce new bills in the California legislature was Friday, February 19th. About 2,100 new bills were introduced. Once a bill has been introduced, it has to sit 30 days before it can be heard by a policy committee. City staff is currently reviewing the new bills for potential impacts to the city and for alignment with the city's proposed 2016 legislative platform. The schedule is that the legislature will recess on March 17th and will reconvene on March 28th. The suggested action is to adopt the 2016 legislative platform per the City Council Policy 2.02, legislation and legislative matters. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Charlotte?
Yes, I don't know that this is a question, but I do have a suggestion, and I'm talking about big page 25, under storm drain and sewer. And number 2, this is talking about oppose legislation that imposes new regulatory burdens on municipal utility systems without providing funding and or consideration. And I would like to add the words, the cost or before feasibility, because they don't consider the cost.
Charlotte, I'm sorry, could you repeat that word? It's 25 where?
Page 25, up at the top, storms, drain, and sewer is C, and then number 2. And so in the last line is one word long, but above that, I think it would be good if we added, the line would read, if you accepted my suggestion, funding and or consideration of the cost or feasibility of monitoring and mitigating such requirements.
Fine with me.
I'll second.
Any other objections? Okay, I have no problem with that. Bill,
Mayor, another
Kevin?
hand.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think it's really good.
I think this thing is fantastic. I'm not sure if you can throw another thing in here. You covered everything. I looked it over and went, wow, they can't say any more than this. So you've covered everything, done a
Well,
good
the
job.
legislature can come up with some weird things.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll make a comment from the
Sure, comment.
committee issue, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think when we were looking at it in this, I don't know how many years we've been doing it in this format.
3? 3?
I think close to 3.
But it's nice that we have a document that is specific but yet general enough that you don't have to keep tweaking it back and forth.
Yeah.
Because our interests don't change, our needs don't change that much, but you just have to be able to address what the state throws at us. So, compliments to everybody that's had a hand in this as we move along. Certainly makes the job of keeping it up to date easier. And the job of keeping our eye on the state of California.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is fortunate that with our committee structure that we rotate with different council members because we get a different perspective and interest, and so it is a great document, and it's a collective of the city council. We appreciate that.
Move the approval.
You have a
Second.
motion? Second. Any other comments? Please vote. That passes 5-0. Now we're going to go into closed session. We have any other items on the agenda except, well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Comments by staff, by city council members.
Let's start with city manager.
City manager.
I don't have any comments unless the other executives may have something.
Comments, Kevin, you want to start?
Let's see here, policy, RDP. The project on Santa Rosa, do we have an update on how that's progressing?
Yes, and if you have been by there, continuing work with the initial wall construction is what's going on there to widen out into the hillside. And you see another up on the higher slope there, some initial testing holes for the type of wall that's going to be constructed there has been performed. They're waiting to get the results of the test back. What it is, it's a soil nail wall where they drill into the hillside and anchor the wall foundations into the hill. They've performed the test anchors for that and are waiting the set period of time for that to cure to get the test results to continue to move forward with that. So that's the main effort right now is in the wall construction to create the widened area to then fall back into the actual road construction after that's completed. That will take a substantial amount of time. There's a large amount of work required to build those walls.
In the rush hour, is it having any effect with the traffic, or is the traffic flowing fairly well?
Well, I
considering?
experience it, especially morning rush hour. I come through there every day. On the way out, I'm usually a little bit later than rush hour. But and when my experience, and also as far as complaints, we haven't received any that I'm significant that I'm aware of. It's very well signed. We've had the advance warning signs out well in advance. Helps always to alert people. It is it's still necking down to one lane, which it always had been. The pattern's a little bit different, but so far it's been working out well.
Okay.
I can't follow up on that, Kevin, because I come down on Tuesdays from the Rotary meeting, like 8 o'clock, and it took quite a while sitting there waiting because it's a one-lane road, and everybody's using it now pretty good. Where and when do we anticipate a stoplight on that road?
Stoplight on Santa Rosa?
No, not Santa Rosa. I'm talking about on Ponderosa.
We're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Santa Rosa.
You're right. I've got another one. I'll come back at you in a minute.
Bring it up when you get through.
You're right. I'm sitting there thinking of something else. Go
We
ahead.
don't need another stoplight on Santa Rosa.
Yeah, exactly.
Bill?
Well, I along with Councilmember McDonald, we are very familiar with that section of roadway, and I will tell you that the traffic measures that they put into place keeps the traffic going.
Mm-hmm.
You don't feel like you're entering into a war zone, and it's working out very well, and they're making very, very good progress as far as I can tell. I'm impressed with the size of the woodwork that's going up on the side of that hill. So, a couple things. First of all, I attended the Chamber Economic Development Committee, at which time we had Brian Brennan and our talking about the SOAR initiative. He's one of their people that work with the Board of Supervisors. So, and they tried to explain to us why this was important and everything else, and we raised some issues about the fact that, well, I raised the issue that 10 years or 20 years ago, almost 16 years ago, I guess it is, we basically entered into an agreement with them as a city that, you know, we would draw a ring around our city and we would leave the outside to them and everything. And of course now this new one has got them taking a piece of about 600 acres of our land and saying it's going to be off limits to the council to do anything unless there's a vote of the people. So it's kind of a change of an agreement that I thought we had entered into, is try to work out the differences between the city and the county and the neighbors and everything else. But anyway, it's going forward, and there's going to be, as I mentioned before, I think there will be a second agreement, a second SOAR initiative that will be more less in terms of time involved. The first one is for 34 years. The second one, I think, is going to be for 20, and will allow some uses, industrial uses in the agricultural fields for food processing as opposed to this one. So, anyway, it was an interesting conversation we had. The other thing that I attended was the VCTC. That, as I've mentioned to you, is we're moving rather rapidly ahead with this idea of a sales tax for transportation purposes. We will start talking about that at the board meeting, I understand, in next month, April and May, and with a decision scheduled for May. So if there's this council wants me to take a position on this, we better have it on the agenda for discussion between now and 1st of May.
Isn't Darren going to make a presentation to us here pretty soon?
There is going to be presentations.
I think we ought to wait until we have that
is
presentation.
23rd of March.
23rd of March?
Yes. That will be, I've spoken to Darren about that. His intention is that will be for educational purposes only. I don't intend on scheduling a discussion about it that evening, but we'll certainly do that, let's say, for the first meeting in May. We can schedule a discussion for that so you can give your thoughts and comments.
Well, the first meeting in May or April, are you talking about April or May?
I'm sorry. It can be any meeting.
Well, the first meeting in May for council is after we will have a VCTC
okay. You're right.
meeting,
We'll have a discussion on it in April. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Part of the reason we've waited longer than the other cities for Darren to report is the longer we wait without interfering with our schedule, which it won't, because we have 2 meetings in April that Mr. Norman just mentioned, is he'll give us more information. More updated information, because the city manager group, our monthly group, is working on the allocation, the what if the half-cent sales tax measure passes, what would be the amounts, the dollar amounts that would go to the different cities and so on.
Yes,
so we're counting our whatever before they hatch. So, but that's how this thing works. So.
You have to also take in consideration the quarter-cent sales tax. Is that quarter or half-cent from the state of California that they're potentially going to put on the ballot?
And there's other cities that are considering ballots, and this obviously doesn't help that cause as well. So it needs to really be looked at thoroughly, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Jan? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go backwards. Jan.
Backwards. Meeting-wise, we had a policy committee meeting finishing up banners. So you will be getting a update to our ordinance, yes, with banners, so you'll see that. Besides that, I don't have anything other than my comment on the Santa Rosa. I am also impressed with the contractor and the job that they're doing in controlling traffic. It's a little scary making my right turn out of there. The one thing I would ask, if they park their trucks back so they're not blocking the view so you can see, because you're coming out and in among all their barricades and whatnot. So that was my one request, because the workers tend to keep pulling out into the road. And that's all I have.
Charlotte?
Well, I attended the RDP 21 meeting on the 1st, and Rear Admiral Brian Corey, who's the commander of Nav Air, he's stationed up at Ridgecrest, but both bases are under his control, so he gave us an update. I really like it when he comes to talk. This is the second time he's talked to us, because he talks in English, not in military. And so it's easy to understand what he's talking about. And he doesn't talk in acronyms either, and so I like that. I attended the Ranch Foundation meeting on the 2nd. I'm not sure how or why, but the meetings run much, much shorter now than they used to.
New leader.
And I really like that. I was home by 8 o'clock. The meetings start at 6:30, and so, it used to be I'd get home like at 10 or something. So, and they still get all the business done. When people start talking way too long on something, he has a way of roping them in. Oh, my water bill came. I'm happy to tell you I used 2 units.
2? God,
Right
I
there.
was 7. I thought I felt good.
But I'm meeting my goal. It may not be 2.
I don't know what my goal is.
Is that 20% less than what you've normally used?
It is not 20% less than last year at this time.
I know. I'm only kidding.
I have been working, you wouldn't believe how much I've been working on this Veterans Ad Hoc Committee. We now have on the list and the information for 129 Vietnam veterans, 17 who were killed in action, although we don't have a lot of information on them. We have the date of death and all that kind of thing, but I'm going to be working much more on next of kin in the next week. And we have one who would have been in the first group, but he passed away recently, so I'm keeping 3 lists. And by the way, I had an email chat with Chris Chatfield, who said to say hi to Kevin and to Mike.
Good. I played football with him.
This next one, I'm not sure how to describe. I was going to write it in an email to Public Works, but I never could figure out how to describe it. So I'll try in person. Because every morning I'm reminded of it. And it's a Caltrans thing, but we need to contact Caltrans, because I keep reading, don't let your water accumulate to breed mosquitoes. And as one comes, I guess it would be where Dawson turns into Mission Oaks. So it's just north of the freeway. If you look to the right, down at the bottom of all the ice plant, there is a very long drain. And water comes in there from all over, I guess. But it never, ever drains. So after we've gone sometimes for months and months without having had rain, there's still lots of water in there. And so I'm sure it's a good breeding place, and we need to let Caltrans know that they need to do something. I mean, they could build up the part. The drain's over here, and the water's down here. So they need to build it up or do something to that. It's a concrete-lined drain, but it's open, and it's probably 10, 15 feet long, 2-3 feet wide. Maybe it's longer than that.
Yeah, we have contacts with Caltrans that we work on those types of issues with, and we'll be sure to contact them on that. And especially if sounds like there may be excess water, also.
On the ice plant.
Right, exactly. So we will contact them and address that.
Yeah, I see it every morning as I'm coming home from the YMCA to get on the freeway, and so I always think I'll bring it up and never do. That's it.
Okay. Well, I've got a few things. I was sick for the last 2 weeks, folks. I think half the city's sick. My doctor said, do antibiotics now because everyone's got it. It's not fun. Anyway, I have been attending things, though. Bill, you remember the fire department awards? We stood up there. You stood up there for ages. Well, I had to do it this time.
They gave an award to everyone on that fire department.
I know, it was a lot. It was held at Padre Serra, and it was a very good event. But still, you're up there for a long time. Transportation conference we had at Spanish Hills Country Club. That was a very good conference for those who went. It was the VCTC and others' chance to promote the sales tax. That's basically what it was, and giving all the information. Jan and I went to an Eagle Scout Award together at the Methodist Church, and that was fun. Top 10 community awards. Most of us went to that, I think. Top 10 community awards at Las Posas Country Club. Whoop, no. I'm sorry. Spanish at Padre Serra. That was fun. That was a good night, good evening. They had the biggest crowd they've ever had, over 300 people. To let you know, I recently was appointed to a panel. It's called the Hydrogen Panel Group with the Energy Commission, State of California. Because I've been so involved with the Air Quality Control Board, and I represent us up in the 3 counties Quality Control Board, and they know that I'm big time with. I think that hydrogen cells are going to be the future myself, and this governor's pushing this. But now they have to sit down and do a lot of planning about, just like a chicken and the egg. Where is it going to come from? Where are they going to locate these gas stations that have the cells that serve also? And so it's just now in the planning stages. I met over the phone because we had a phone. It was in Santa Barbara, but I couldn't cook. I didn't feel like it, and some others didn't either. But we had a long conversation over the phone. It was fun. But as it progresses, I'll tell you. I'll let you know what's going on. And it's going to take a while. This is like big-time government. It's going to take a while. I couldn't go to the Ranch House Foundation with Charlotte, and thank you, Charlotte, because I was very sick at that time. Could not make it.
When you called, I just said, stay home. I don't want to be around you.
Stay home. Don't give it to them. Ponderosa. Let me go back to Ponderosa real quick. When you come down the hill from Spanish Hills Country Club, you wait a long time, to 8 in the morning-ish, because the traffic is kind of heavy there now. I've done that twice in the last 2 weeks, and it's been really wait, and I figure out, why didn't I go down the other roadway? But is there any time frame in the future when they look at the stoplight there?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact time frame on that, and honestly, I'm not aware if the current projects out there have been conditioned at all to for the actual installation of a signal. Typically, it's conditioned in there as to if warrants are met, that there would be a contribution towards that signal. And
right,
I would have to look further into any exact timing and get back to you on that.
Okay, that's what the people up there from this homeowner association were asking me, because they'd heard, we're going to set it up for a contribution for a stoplight there. Yeah. That made them feel a little better that they can get out in the future, and you can see it now. It's happening because more and more people are going to taking that roadway, both directions, coming into Camarillo and going out. So it took a while, but you might want to look at that and let us know.
Okay.
Okay, I have nothing else to comment on, but we will. Mr. City Attorney, would you like to make some announcements?
Yes, we have some closed session items. There'll be a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. The number of cases is 6. And we have some real property items. These are all under Government Code Section 54956.8. They all involve price and terms of payment. One of them is regarding the former library at 3100 Ponderosa. Another will be the property on Ventura Boulevard with respect to the Hotel Conference Center. Another property under discussion is the former fire station on Ventura Boulevard. And there will also be a conference with legal counsel on existing litigation. That's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. And the name of that case is City of Camarillo versus Callegas Land Company.
If there's no other comments, we'll adjourn to the study session, or recess, excuse me, to the study session, and be back at 7:30.
But I found Mike's letter in the parking lot.
Everybody ready?
Yes.
You probably lost it there.
That's what I think is strange. Check it out then.
Okay.
Can the city council please come to order? Could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Craven.
Here.
Councilmember Kildee.
Here.
Councilmember Little.
Here.
Vice Mayor McDonald. Here. Mayor Morgan.
Here. Would you please stand for a flag salute? Charlotte, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Please rise, place your hand over your heart, and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have a presentation this evening by Todd McNamee. Todd, would you like to come forward and give us your presentation?
Hey, Todd.
Thank you. I'm excited he's such a good turnout for the presentation. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, good evening. I'm Todd.
Oh, pull your microphone up a little more, too, though. Yeah, so I can hear you. There you go.
All right. Well, good evening. Todd McNamee, the Director of Airports. It's on.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Check, check.
Pilot.
I was wondering, I was like, wow, I just don't hear myself anywhere else. So, all right. Well, how about if I just start over? So, thank you for the invitation. My name is Todd McNamee. I'm the Director of Airports for the County of Ventura. Very happy to give you an update on operations and some of the projects planned out at our both airports, but really Camarillo Airport, since we're here at Camarillo City Hall tonight. I really wanted to frame the presentation tonight around the relationship, the positive relationship between the airport, the city, and the community. Your members of council get to participate on our airport authority, and so you participate in the development, policies, long-term leases, and other things like that. So you have a say in how that airport's developed and operated, because it does have impact on your community, your constituents here in the city of Camarillo. And I also wanted to give a shout out to the positive working relationship with city staff, from city manager's office, public works, community development, economic development. It really does take a village to ensure compatibility, and that the improvements on and around the airport are for the benefit of the community. So aviation in the state of California is a very large industry, about $110 billion of economic impact. Locally, our two airports generate about $300 million of positive benefit, support over 2,500 jobs, and a big number here, 250,000 takeoffs and landings. Of these numbers I'm giving you, about 2/3 of those are Camarillo and about 1/3 is Oxnard. So with 250,000 takeoffs and landings, we only generate less than 100 noise complaints annually. And that really is a testament to the outreach to the pilot community to make them aware of those noise-sensitive areas and to ensure that they fly friendly, to minimize that negative impact of the airport on the community. 200 tons of cargo, that's a company called Ameriflight, primarily providing service for UPS and DHL. P-Cube, so the public-private partnership. You know, I've been at the airport now almost 15 years, and we've seen just about $100 million invested in the airport. About $50 million of that private. You see the Sun Air facilities, Air 7, just about every aviation business on the airports develop new facilities of one sort or another. And then I like to think we're pretty good at getting grant money. We've seen almost $40 million of grant funds in those years. for maintaining the runways, doing nice projects like LED lighting for the airfield lighting, and things like that. So the FAA a couple years ago did a categorization or an asset study, and they ranked all the general aviation airports in the country, basic, local, metro, regional, national being the largest in the category. And I'm pleased to say that Camarillo is considered a national asset in the FAA's eyes based on the type of airplanes, the number of airplanes based there, again, the operations. And so that's important to us when they use that to prioritize funding for grants. And of course, they're going to feed the national assets first with those grants. So we're excited about being categorized that way. Passengers at Oxnard, we lost service back in 2010. It is a very difficult task to bring an airline back because we're looking at a regional type service, not a mainline carrier with much larger aircraft. And so the regional airlines don't have any extra airplanes laying around. They have a pilot shortage at this time, and so it's very difficult for them to serve Oxnard, and we're really aiming for the Bay Area. For them to do that, that means they have to pull an aircraft out of another route. And so we have to show that it can be more profitable. We have data. We don't necessarily have proven market studies for flights that we used to have to San Francisco. So continue to work on it because we know it's an important service for the community. And then collaboration is another word out at the airport. We've got a lot of great associations and aviation businesses that we all work together for the betterment of the airport. Staff at the airport participates in aviation associations. I sit on the board of directors for one of the state's innovation hubs around defense, energy, and aerospace. And of course, we have the Office of Education out at the airport, and they've created what's called an Air Academy, where they're teaching pilot ground school and unmanned aircraft systems operations to high school kids. And so they actually get a head start from a lot of those kids. And it's great to feed them in to some of those Navy programs and Channel Islands University with that knowledge coming out of high school. And of course, we have a seat at the table when it comes to aviation issues. Our congressional representative, Julia Brownlee, sits on the aviation subcommittee, and she is a great supporter of aviation, as with many other things in the county of Ventura. And so we're very happy to have her there in Congress. So I wanted to talk about a couple of my favorite projects that we've done out at the airport before I start talking about a couple coming up. The first is the Camarillo Viewport, and this was sort of an expansion of the restaurant, if you will, where the operator wanted to create more seating on the airport side of things. And at the same time, we wanted to create a public viewing area for the public to come and visit and sort of be embraced by that airport environment. So what we actually created, again, collaboration with the Ventura County 99's Women's Aviation Organization, the museum, the Experimental Aircraft Association, and the Waypoint Cafe, is a miniature airport. And so you can see sort of the runway 268, which is the same runway that we have at the real airport, just north of here. And then the taxi lanes, and then the tower is a miniature version of the real tower that we have at the airport. And it actually transmits live communication between the pilots and the controllers. So when you're there visiting, you get to hear that communication and start to understand pilot lingo. So it's just great for the kids. And of course, we have sort of educational signage, history of the airport, and some information on those different associations. So it really is a wonderful place for the public to come visit and, again, be embraced in that aviation community. Going back a bit further, this is my win cube. So it's more than just a win-win. It was a win-win-win between the city, the county, and Chelsea Properties. If you remember, in the early 2000s, they were looking to develop or expand the outlet mall. And the airport held a very restrictive easement over that parcel. And so in order to get the FAA's approval to modify that easement to allow that development to go forward, we had to show a benefit to civil aviation. Well, at that time, the airport was operating on a proprietary well water system. The pressure and flows were not really up to snuff when we looked at future development for the airports. And so getting hooked up to city water was very important to us. So in exchange for modifying that easement, Chelsea actually connected us to the city water system as the first benefit. And then your city stepped up and did the rest of the improvements on the airport and actually fronted the funds for that. And then we're paying it back through the difference in our rates. We already had sort of artificially high rates at the airport because we have a limited number of users compared to the community in the city of Camarillo. And so that difference between those rates is paying that debt service back. But if we had to go out on our own, our rates probably would have doubled or tripled above what the already high rates were. So it was a great benefit to us to have that happen. If you remember early on, the design that Chelsea came up with, about 240,000 square feet of retail space being added. And here's a picture of it today, almost exactly as it was designed early on. Great benefit to the city with new revenues, the community with an already great attraction being doubled in size, and it worked out great for the airport because we got these wonderful improvements to the water system. So all of the blue lines you see on that chart are new water lines that were added in addition to the connection to the city water. And then the city actually went above and beyond and did a loop down at the west end connecting us to the north side of the airport with the expansion that's happening there. So the water system, if one end or the other goes down, we still have reliable water. So one of my all-time favorite projects. And so I want to thank again the city for participating in that. So that gets us to our next priority out at the airport, which is hangars being developed in the northeast corner. So we have a wait list of about 150 people. That's somewhere between a 5 to 7 year wait to get a hangar out there at the airport for pilots. And so we're looking at developing quite substantially in the northeast corner. The county's moving forward with a project of about 45 hangars up here in this area. That's our phase 1. And then phase 2 will be a few years out, and then phase 3 is a row of hangars down here. On the heels of phase 1, we already have a commercial developer lined up to develop about 100,000 square feet of space. It's 80,000 in hangar and about 20,000 square feet of office. Those are incumbent businesses already on the airport that have already outgrown their facilities, some of them new, some of them old. And so, again, we look to work very closely with city staff as we look for a right turn in, right turn out access off of Las Posas, connecting into the city sewer and running infrastructure west on the airport. We already have water, thanks to that great project a few years ago, on airport. But of course, the vault for Edison is out here in Las Posas. So there's a lot of interaction has already taken place, and there'll be much more to come. But a very positive project for the airport. Our project for our 45 hangars or so is about $9 million, of which we'll see $4 million of FAA money. And then the commercial development at the very east end is about a $20 million investment. So substantial money coming to the airport in the next few years. Like all good government, we're looking at more solar installations countywide. It's a little bit different out at the airport. We have to go through a more rigorous environmental review and do a glare study to make sure that where we're placing panels doesn't create glare and sight issues for pilots. We've finally gotten through those hurdles, and now we're moving forward where we're going to install panels in various locations at both airports that should accommodate about 70% of our needs on the air side of the airport for utilities. And then a couple years out, another big project. This is about a $14 million project. Most of that will be FAA funds, but total reconstruction of the runway. The runway has not had a major rehabilitation in about 21 years now. Typical useful life of a runway is 20 years. We've done a couple of overlays and some slurry and stripe and things like that, but it's time to do a full reconstruction. And so this is our next major project after we get started in our hangars. This one's interesting because it's a bit difficult with the safety areas that we have to maintain. We essentially have to shut down the airport while we're doing the construction. So we may see the airport shut down for a period of up to 3 months. So we're doing the same thing at Oxnard, but we're staggering these projects by a year. So the tenants at Camarillo can relocate over to Oxnard as best we can accommodate them. And then the following year, those tenants can move over from Oxnard to Camarillo. So a big project for us, but we're doing everything we can to minimize that impact on our tenants and shorten the closure time. So I think you're all aware of the cars that are being stored out at the airport. This has actually been, I don't want to say a financial windfall, but absolutely a benefit to our bottom line. We store about 40 acres of cars, 35 at Camarillo Airport and 5 over at Oxnard. Originally, they were going to stay for just a few months. It's now been over a year. And I guess the number's public. We generate about $170,000 a month in revenue for storing these cars. Wow. So it has. It's been very nice. It's allowed us to actually save money to pay for that hangar project we want to do right out of our enterprise fund and not have to get a loan from Caltrans. So it's been great for us that way. But they're starting to phase out. And so these are the red outlines, and the one blue outline actually are where the cars are located on the airport. So these are out on the airport side, and these are actually in the business park. These two parcels here are going to be vacated first in the next month or two. Part of that is the temporary use permits getting close to expiring anyways. But really, it's trucking those vehicles back and forth. That additional charge is starting to hurt them. And so they're consolidating to locations closer to the port where they can just drive the cars to store them. And then we're actually, as I just mentioned, we're starting to move forward with construction up here. So we would be respectfully requesting them to depart that facility anyways as we move forward with construction. But we are taking advantage, again, working with your community development staff to upgrade and do some improvements to one of the parcels so we can continue to use it, not just for of autos, but other outdoor activities. So take it from a temporary use permit to a planned development permit. So really looking to comply by doing a nice vinyl fence, drought-tolerant landscaping, the proper setbacks for a parcel that's about 6 or 7 acres. So we can continue to use that. I mean, ultimately, all of these parcels in the business park are slated for development, whether it's office, industrial, warehouse, whatever. We want to see development in the business park. But in the meantime, when we can use it for temporary use, whether it's month to month or in this case with a TUP maybe up to 5 years, it helps us generate revenue on that vacant land until such time someone's willing to develop. So it's a nice benefit to have. And then, of course, the city's projects. So we work closely, again, with your community development staff to make sure that the development you're moving forward, in this case the hotel and conference center, is compatible with airport operations. You know, we look at these projects really from the eye of safety. Safety for the pilots, so if something goes wrong on the airplane, they have areas to land, but also for safety for people on the ground. And so when we look at that, a portion of this parcel fell within our outer safety zone. Working with staff and the developer that you guys are working with, we're able to sort of reorganize or change the layout to make sure that certain uses aren't inside of some of those zones, and it's working out, I think, quite nicely. And then I wanted to take the opportunity, because I know we're televised, to get the word out about drone operations around the airport. So this is a national issue where the FAA is tasked with integrating drones into the national airspace. It's doable, it's safe. My prior life of 15 years before I switched over to the world of airports was in unmanned aircraft. And so it can be done safely, but a lot of people just don't know the do's and don'ts. So for commercial operators out there, you're really not supposed to operate any closer than 5 miles to an airport. For hobbyists, you can actually operate closer than that, but you're supposed to contact and coordinate with the airport and the control tower to make sure that you're not flying in a place like this, which might be right under the approach to the airport, unknowingly creating a hazard. And so a couple websites up there, of course, our website for the airports. We have all of the latest and greatest FAA bulletins on do's and don'ts and where and why. And then, of course, the FAA's website, faa.gov/UAS, has all the things happening related to UAS. But it's very important to us that we encourage innovation and those types of operations, but in a safe manner. And then, of course, our air show coming up this August, 20th and 21st. Always have a good warbird display and experimental aircraft and good aerobatics. I know we'll have some modern military out there as well this year. So typically we see between 10 and 15,000 people out at the air show. I encourage you to attend. And then lastly, before I give up the microphone, I just wanted to say congratulations to Bruce. It's been great working with you. You'll be missed. Enjoy that retirement. And of course, I look forward to working with Dave as your replacement as city manager. So that's it, if you have any questions.
Thanks, Todd. Questions? Any questions?
Good job.
Great job. No questions. That means you did a good job, Todd.
Well, thanks again for the opportunity.
We do have a question.
Yeah, well, it's more of a compliment because I've been associated with that airport indirectly and directly for a number of years, about 25, and Todd has taken that airport to a new level in the time he's been there, and he deserves all the credit for most of that he talked about, and he's done a great job on it, and you're to be commended.
Thank you, but very talented staff that I work with. That's how it gets done.
And all the staffs are talented, and it takes leadership.
Okay. And one of the things, by the way, I've been on there all these years, almost 30 years on being on that board. you have done such a good job at being friendship to the city. You know, I'm talking about because sometimes we didn't have quite that close of a friendly arrangements sometime, but you've done a great job, Todd.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions. Okay. This is a time of the evening for public comments and items that are not on the agenda. So we do have 3 cards of individuals who wish to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. First, I'd like to hear from Barbara or Elizabeth Rice. There we go.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I really appreciate the service you all do, and I just have an issue about the embezzlement that really came to light in the Acorn the other day. And I spoke with a lot of people after that because it was really disturbing to me. And, you know, people just felt really appalled, disgusted, shamed. And I think the problem is not that people feel, you know, some kind of meanness to this guy that did it, but it's really the disparity and justice when we have people that steal a lot of money and don't really feel the consequences, and other people have very severe consequences for much lesser crimes that they commit. And I went down to talk to the police chief on Monday after I read the newspaper, and her account of, I mean, she basically said she wasn't involved with this at all, that she heard in passing about there was a potential embezzlement. She didn't really know whether it happened, invited, you know, a complaint to be filed and evidence brought, and didn't happen. And so she didn't really even know if there was embezzlement. So she wasn't condoning not bringing charges, which is what it seemed like from the way the Acorn wrote the piece. And I just feel like, you know, when you embezzle something, it's not generally like one check that you're writing. It's a series of thefts. Over and over again, this person is committing theft. And so it's something that's very significant. And for me, I'd rather be beat up, get 2 black eyes and a bunch of bruises than steal $24,000 from me. That's a lot of money. It's like the amount of money some people earn in a year, or some people even less than that. It's just significant. And like, it's $950 is grand theft. And it was a few years ago, it was only $450 was grand theft. And this is $24,000. And this guy's going to leave. I mean, a lot of time embezzlers, they leave the community, and he has no record. He's free to go to the next place, join some kind of volunteer organization, and do the same thing someplace else. And I just see this in contrast to the way we treat, like other people. Like, I went to the sheriff's blotter, and I thought, like, do we give, like, 1/10 of the mercy to those people? We don't. It's like people that are on the other side of the track, we think of them as different. They're different. They, you know, I don't know, in my mind, this we used to think of somebody on the other side of the track, whether they have mental illness, they're impulsive from ADHD, you know, they have drug addiction. We are very harsh in our criminal justice system. And if we're going to be harsh with people, we need to do it evenly. And I think part of that then comes down to, like, there's an appearance of impropriety for people that don't file charges, because it makes it seem like it's okay in your mind, and it's not okay.
Can I?
Defense, I mean, it's really, there's a lot of it going on. I have a friend in Camarillo whose preschool co-op was embezzled $50,000, and the police didn't want to press charges, and she had to, you know, take steps to get somebody involved to press charges. I don't think they're in that place again, that they will press charges.
Okay. Can we stop right there? Let me, before we go any further, because there's a couple of things like this on here, and you have to know the true facts, which you don't. One of those is that I did discuss this with the police chief to let her know what I had discovered, because I'm one of those on the board, a board, not me making a decision, the board make the decision. And when I discovered this problem, of course, we had to do a lot of pulling checks and everything to get it, but we got it. And I solved it, okay? Went to the police chief and said, what choices do we have? Because if we put him in prison, with no prior record and almost 60 years old, we put him in prison and we don't get our money back, period. We lose $24,000. Or do I have that choice of getting to pay it all back right now so we don't lose our money? And for the Fiesta, that's a lot. And we make 20-something thousand for the kids every year. For the youth at the school, they have to work for it. But those teams and other things make money. If we had lost that, that would have hurt us. Now let me finish. I took the information to the board, okay, to let them know, here's the choices we have. We can get the money back. It's got to be now. It's now long term. Or he can go to prison and we lose. We don't have money. So we, as a board, the whole board, not me, I presented it to them because I was not president and let them know the facts. At that time, the board decided, even though they really were angry at what he did to us, very angry, but the board decided they'd rather get their money back, and when he was told, you got this choice, you're going to prison or you got the money now, he got it. His father in Florida, 94-year-old father, called me to make sure I knew that he'd be sending him the money. So we got almost all that money back, and he's got a few more months to pay monthly payments to finish the rest of it, and it's done. So $24,000 wasn't lost. We regained that. We regained that. No, it wasn't lost. We've regained $20,000 right away. Now, we're going to have all of it. And a question I had of the police chief is, if he didn't pay that payment toward the end of the year, it's over? Can I still press charges? And he said yes. So he knows he's got to finish this up in the next few months. But he gave us 20 right away. And so we are at least thankful we have money to operate the Fiesta on and help kids in the community. That's it. Okay.
I understand that, but that's not like sending him to prison and then getting the money back. There's like a whole gradation in between. He didn't need to go to prison. He could have had restitution.
No. I was a probation officer. Let me tell you something real quick, so you know.
I'm not sure we can get into.
Probation officers can't pull money if you don't have money. I used to gather the money. That's restitution.
Excuse me.
It's not a city manager.
I know. Please go. We're done. Next up. Next person. Matt Lormer. You want to say the same thing, Matt?
I'd like you to be respectful, please. You know something? I've been coming to City Hall a long time. You've had a lot of scandals. Your city manager, the city was sued. You have Habitat doing work they're not licensed. On and on and on. And by the way, you have 6 litigation things you're going to talk about on the agenda. So let's start with what I need to say. Mike Morgan is on the Camarillo City Council and serves on the Camarillo Fiesta Association. He has a duty and responsibility to make sure the Fiesta Association has accountability of the funds they received, especially since the funds come from the city of Camarillo. The Fiesta Association lost its nonprofit status from 2009 to 2011 due to a lack of knowledge how to run a nonprofit. Mike Morgan, along with the Fiesta board, found out that Robert Campanelli had embezzled $24,000. Once the embezzlement was discovered, the police should have been called, and Mr. Calabani should have been arrested and charged in a court of law. Instead, Mr. Morgan, the city manager, Bruce Fing, along with the Camarillo chief of police, Monica McGrath, decided they would run their own court without the public. They allowed white-collar crime or friends of the Camarillo City Council to break the law or live under special rules, get out of jail free cards. When the public officials hide or conceal information regarding the funds that are embezzled, that the public trust is broken. Of all the people we should be able to trust, our city council and nonprofit groups. Was any other member of the city council aware of this conduct? If so, they must be held accountable. Also, Mr. Morgan should resign from office because he has shown that he is not responsible with the city funds and covered up a crime. The city council members of the city officials should not be on the board where city funds are given. This prevents conflict of interest. Since February 23rd, 2016, I've been waiting for records from the city of Camarillo on how the funds were spent for the last 5 years regarding the Camarillo Fiesta Association. We should be able to trust our leaders and hold them accountable for the action. There have been many lawsuits against the city of Camarillo. Why? The people of Camarillo deserve accountability and transparency from the leaders in Camarillo. You know something? The buck stops with the rest of the city council. Do you approve that somebody who steals $24,000 should get away with it? You know, Kevin and Mike, you're running for supervisor. How are you going to run on this record? You know, this city has a lot of problems. Constant lawsuits, constant problems, and this is a result of poor management. And you know something? It's time the voters either get rid of some people on this council and there's a lot of problems going on. But the idea that you want to make excuses for the boys and girls, that's great. I believe in the Festive Association, but here's the thing. It's time for them to replace the whole entire board. There is no excuse for allowing a criminal to walk away with $24,000. I'm not going to get in a debate with you, Mike. I am done. Its public comments are over. I have nothing else to say, and I'm not taking questions. Thank you.
Great. I hope you believe yourself someday. Thank you. We have one more card, and we have Brenda Poland. Brenda?
Good evening. I want to thank you for letting me speak. I'll make this brief. I am one of the newest residents at Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. I know you guys are familiar with a lot of things that have gone on. I'm not here to be angry. I'm just here to voice some major concern. I have a husband who's disabled. I have a 12-year-old son. We moved in November, hoping that we would not have to move again. And my husband and I, we're both getting older now. I mean, I'm 54. It may not seem old for a lot of people, but when you're trying to stay somewhere stable, I have a 12-year-old son who loves his school. And now we're finding out that the Lamplighter mobile homeowner wants to increase our monthly rent to $2,500. I can't afford that. I'm begging you guys to please. I know that there's been people that have gone to the rent review committee. We need to have it up because he's going to have 200 residents there. We have senior citizens. We have lots of families who there's no way we're going to be able to afford that. My husband's on a fixed income. I work for the county of Ventura. I work with the Medi-Cal technical site. I see people lose their homes, not being able to buy food. And unfortunately, crime is starting to move into our area. And our area is surrounded by homes that are $700,000 up to $1 million. We're not even able to compete with that kind of thing, but I'm asking you to please, please, let's look at this. I'll work with you. Tell me what I need to do. But we need to get a cap on this mobile home park. It's this man is corrupt. He's going to throw all of us out on the street. There's people that can't even sell their mobile homes. I also found out that most of the people that are coming in, and this is affecting the realtors too in their lifestyle, their businesses are just going down the drain because the loan companies do not want to rent or loan the money to these places, to these people, because the park is so expensive. It costs you $1,275 just for the space. And this gentleman wants to raise it up to $25,000.
$2,500.
I'm sorry, $2,500. Yeah, that's a big jump for us too, though, just the same. So, I would really, really implore that you guys please move on this because we can only go to the rent review committee so many times. We need a permanent solution, and I would be most grateful if we could start this. Thank you.
Could you do me a favor?
Certainly.
We've heard these numbers. These are
Yes.
that is fantastic, big number.
Yes.
Could you provide that a copy of your potential raise to our staff so we can have a chance to see?
I will contact our HOA, and I will find out what I can do about getting those numbers for you, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Okay. About a month ago, we had a hearing here on this very issue, and I think we referred it to the staff to contact the owner as well as to talk about further action in terms of rent control. I just wonder if there's going to be a report or where the thing stands.
Yeah. You'll be receiving a update on what actions and efforts we intend to take in closed session.
Tonight?
Tonight.
Tonight? Well,
okay.
Thank you for your time.
We're going to have a meeting tonight on it then, so we'll take care of it one way or the other.
Okay. I have no other cards on items that are not on the agenda. So now I'd like to move to, I lost my stuff here. move to a public hearing, which would be residential resolution approving 2016-17 CBDG funding allocations.
Thank you. Mayor Oksana Buck, Associate Planner from the Department of Community Development, will be presenting this item to you in the City Council.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. The purpose of this hearing is to provide the CDBG program overview, review funding requests for the upcoming fiscal year, receive public input on community needs as required by HUD, and approve the funding allocations. HUD started the CDBG program in 1974, and the city has participated since 2003, receiving approximately $4.5 million in total funding. CDBG is an annual formula grant allocated to the states, counties, and cities to help provide decent housing, safe living environment, and expand economic opportunities. Specifically, CDBG-funded programs must meet one of the following national objectives. The program must benefit low and moderate income persons, prevent or eliminate slums or blight, or address conditions that pose a threat to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Each year, HUD allocates CDBG funds to over 1,200 government units in the country. Those allocations are calculated based on a formula which considers several factors, such as the extent of poverty, population size and growth, housing overcrowding, and age of the housing stock. In order to be eligible to receive CDBG funding, the city must develop a 5-year consolidated plan. This plan identifies community needs and provides a framework for addressing them. The city's consolidated plan is current and it's in effect until May 2020. The annual action plans carry out the consolidated plan, identifying specific actions and how the city is going to use their CDBG funding. Accomplishments for each year are then reported to HUD in the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. The city's priority needs identified in the Consolidated Plan include the following: improve quality and availability of housing, provide services to the homeless, low-income, seniors, and special needs residents, providing fair housing opportunities, and grant administration. This slide highlights key dates for the city's annual CDBG process. The process began with a public workshop on December 2nd, followed by a funding applications deadline of January 22nd. Today we're here to allocate the funding. Your approved allocations will then be incorporated into the annual action plan, which will be released for a required 30-day public comment period, and then presented to your council for adoption on May 11th and submitted to HUD by May 15th. And finally, we will submit our report on accomplishments to HUD in September. Last month, HUD released its fiscal year 2016-17 allocations. The city's portion is $281,099. This is a $4,000 approximately decrease from last year and a 35% decrease from its allocation in 2003. The city's allocation can be divided into 3 broad spending categories. One category is for public services. Up to 15% or approximately $42,000 may be used to fund such programs. Second category is housing. 65% or $182,000 may be used to fund housing programs. And the third category is grant administration. Up to 20% or $56,000 is available for staff time and other activities required by HUD. As I mentioned, 15% or about $42,000 of grant may be used for the public service programs. And we received a total of 9 applications. 8 of those fall into this category. And 7 of those have been funded in the past and are currently being funded this fiscal year. One new applicant is St. Vincent de Paul, Padre Sarah Conference. This name may sound familiar because the city has funded their parent organization in the past, the St. Vincent de Paul Council of Los Angeles, and that was for operating the winter warming shelter. However, this is a separate entity. They're not funded by the parent organization, and they have not been funded by the city in the past. The new applicant would provide emergency assistance to the homeless and the working poor. So this may include emergency motel stays, a one-time rental assistance to avoid eviction, purchasing clothing for a job interview, or other essentials like food and gas, just to name a few things. And you may be familiar with the rest of the organizations since they've been funded in the previous years, but I can answer any questions if needed. So as you can see, the first column of numbers, that's the current fiscal year allocation. The numbers in the middle, that's what each applicant is requesting for the upcoming fiscal year. And the last column with numbers, that's proposed staff allocation. And as I mentioned, the allocation in total cannot exceed $42,165. As I mentioned before, 65% or $182,000 may be used on housing programs. And the applicants for this funding include the Habitat for Humanity and the city to fund its own housing rehabilitation program. So again, the first set of numbers is the current fiscal year's allocation. The second column is the request from the applicant. So Habitat for Humanity is requesting $110,608. And the staff recommends taking the 65% of the total grant and splitting it evenly between the city's rehab program and the Habitat for Humanity the way we did last year. Up to 20% or $56,000 approximately may be used for grant administration activities, which includes the Fair Housing Program. And traditionally, the city has allocated the full 20% for grant administration. Last year, that was approximately $57,000, and this year, 20% comes out to approximately $56,000. Staff's recommendation is that City Council approve a resolution setting forth the fiscal year 2016-17 CDBG funding allocations to be included in the upcoming annual action plan. And that concludes my presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions before public comment.
Any questions, Charlotte?
Yes. There. Is it on now? Okay. It's clear that the St. Vincent de Paul request is not the same as last year. Is this to take over the function of the money that we traditionally give to the winter warming shelter, or is it going to be in addition to it? Because in the past, not this year because they didn't ask us, but always before, the donation to whoever operated the winter warming shelter, and it was different organizations at different times, that came out of this. Mm-hmm. So are you suggesting that this one would replace that, or that we go to general fund, or what?
We did not receive an application for a winter warming shelter. This applicant is a separate entity. St. Vincent de Paul, the Los Angeles Council is the parent organization, but this year's applicant is a separate entity, and the program that they're proposing is not related to the winter warming shelter. It's a separate program, and they're not funded by Los Angeles Council.
Okay. So we're in the same position as we were last year with regard to the winter warming shelter.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Kildee. Try it again, Bill. Good question, did you?
Yeah, I think, as far as I'm concerned, we can certainly hear these people if they have anything to add in the hearing. But I think most of us have know quite a bit about what they're doing. Maybe we should hear from this St. Vincent de Paul organization.
Yes, I wouldn't. Would the rest of you mind hearing from St. Vincent de Paul?
I wouldn't mind hearing from anybody who needs to tell us anything. I just want
to make sure, just before you leave, I'm sorry, I just have one real quick question. The amount of money that we have here, is that a firm dollar amount?
Yes, HUD released its official allocation.
Okay. That's what I wondered. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This is a public hearing, so it would be appropriate now to open the public hearing and accept public testimony from the applicants.
That's what we're going to do right now. We'll open the public hearing at this time. And our first speaker will be, is there any comments by the staff before I go any further? Any further comments? Is Jason Meek, and that's from the Turning Point.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I've been at Turning Point now as the executive director for approximately 14 months and wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself and express from the agency and personally our gratitude for your support. Excuse me. I wanted to just give a brief overview of what the funding does. Now, it's for a shelter, but I can assure you there is so much more that goes on in there. It's not just the immediate safety, the food, shelter, the clothing, the getting in from out of the elements. We have a very comprehensive staff that navigates the social system as a whole, as well as the health. Many of these are the most vulnerable in the county, and what I mean by that is I don't mean just severe and pervasive mental health. I mean physical ailments, things that cost the county an enormous amount of money, and cities as well, depending upon where they get treatment. But we absolutely have a very holistic approach to a team that actually addresses every one of the aspects that leads to homelessness, as well as addresses long-term physical and mental care issues. Furthermore, by landing in the shelter, so to speak, it qualifies these individuals for what's called a coordinated entry, or the VI SPDAT, which is a comprehensive assessment to prioritize people into immediate, permanent, and supportive housing. Otherwise, they would not be afforded this opportunity. So they get this comprehensive assessment, and they get placed accordingly. And the good part of that, it's one thing to attain housing, but it's another to maintain a housing. And for those that have severe mental health issues, that can be quite challenging. And so when they become a part of our program, that is a lifelong member of our community. There is no shelf life. Again, it is so much more than just what it looks like on the surface. And I would certainly be willing to answer any questions. Look forward to any comments or suggestions or recommendations. But I can assure you the money that is spent, the return is tenfold. And again, I just wanted to personally thank the city. They've been a wonderful support. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Any comments, Mr.?
Just one.
Yes.
You have two shelters, I understand. One is in Ventura.
Yes.
And the other one is south here on Lewis Road.
Actually, we only have the one in Ventura. But how that's strategic is we have a very effective outreach team, and we work with a lot of the community members in Camarillo to make those connections, and we provide the transportation, and we certainly work every effort to keep them within their support system. But we also have what's called Via Quiegas. It's a 24-hour.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yes, sorry, that's actually a permanent supportive housing. So it's kind of the end goal. So we get them, we treat them, we get them stable in a place to where they can segue into permanent and supportive housing, which is back in Camarillo, Alpha Lewis Road here.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, Mr. Kildee.
Yeah, I've been here for quite a while, and Turning Point has been a part of this for quite a while. And I just want to thank you for what you do. And if you could pass that along to your staff, because I know it takes a special person to deal with this, but it doesn't go unnoticed, and it is important. So if you would do that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I certainly will.
And we've been rewarding you every year because we know of the importance of your work.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Good evening.
Next is Dan Euler. Dan, I don't know which item it is, so you'll have to tell us.
It's concerning the Ombudsman program. And I'm here on behalf of Sylvia Taylor-Stein, who couldn't make it tonight. She had another commitment. I'm on the board of directors for the agency, and we want to express to the City Council your continued support of the program and our grant requests. Currently, in the City of Camarillo, we monitor 29 residential care facilities for the elderly and 3 nursing facilities. And there's 1,200 people involved. And so the funding would continue to help us in terms of maintenance of paid staff to do complaint investigations, and also provide processing of complaints on behalf of the residents, and we get quite a few of those. We act as a mandated witness for advanced health care directives. We provide pre-placement counseling for Camarillo residents who are thinking about placement of a loved one in a facility. We expand our volunteer recruitment for Camarillo to continue to deal with the surge of facilities that continue to open. I might add that we just had our largest class of training volunteers, February 1st to 5th. We had 13 people, which is our largest class. We currently have 65 ombudsmen, state-certified ombudsmen, that are countywide, and we have to monitor nearly 7,000 beds. So there's a lot to do. In the city of Camarillo, as mentioned, we are very much involved in our monitoring, and we'll continue to do it. And we have a great staff that goes into these facilities unannounced and reports on what they're seeing, and making sure that staff is taking care of the residents and make sure that there are no elder abuse or neglect incidents occurring. If there are, as mentioned, we will do a complaint investigation. I am willing to answer any questions that you might have.
I have a question.
Kevin?
Yes, you kind of brushed upon the fact that there's these facilities, obviously, that are opening in the county. Camarillo specific, do you see an increase in facilities here as well?
Yeah, so the primary surge seems to be in the board and cares, and those are facilities that are in residential neighborhoods of 6 persons or less, and that seems to be the greatest category for which we're seeing the surge or new facilities opening. Not necessarily the larger assisted living facilities, which are throughout the county. And we have 3 skilled nursing facilities within Camarillo, which we monitor. And I might say that we are a model for California in terms of that. You know, the mandate under the Older Americans Act is that you would visit a facility once a year. Well, how could you possibly know what is going on in the facility? Our mandate, going back to when our agency was created, is that we go in every week to a skilled nursing facility. And we go every month to a residential care facility for the elderly. Nobody in California does that, and nobody has a training program like we do. So we are definitely a model statewide, and I think people in Sacramento know that.
Your Honor.
Charlotte?
I just have a comment, and that is this year I've had more than usual opportunities or reasons to go into the skilled nursing facilities and also to the other types of facilities. And every time I go in, I take a look around and I think of ombudsman, and I am very thankful that you're there watching them.
We appreciate that comment, and we will continue to be there because 60% of the people in these facilities have nobody visiting them, and we can fill that role as an advocate, and that's why we're there, to work with the residents and for the residents.
Your Honor, I had a chance to see you in action too, because my mom, who died right before Christmas, was in a board and care home for quite a while, and I was able to see the caregivers, the ones that come in like yourselves and others that help keep them company. And some people didn't have anyone, so you tend to visit yourself with them when you know they don't. But I'm glad you're there. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, our next will be Marilee Rabowski. I got it right, Marilee?
You did well. Rabowski.
Rabowski.
Hi, I'm Mary Lee Rabowski, and I'm a volunteer member of St. Vincent de Paul, Padre Serra. It's after midnight. A woman is found wandering on PCH without identification and no finances. She needs shelter for the night. Who does the Ventura County Sheriff's Department call to help her? A family is short on funds because the husband's illness has caused him to miss work. They don't have enough money to pay their rent. Who do they turn to for help so they can stay in their apartment? A woman in an abusive living arrangement must move. Who helps finance her relocation to establish a life free of abuse? In these cases, St. Vincent de Paul is ready to lend a hand. Although there are a lot of government and community organizations that can provide assistance, few can respond within hours or even within a day. St. Vincent de Paul is an organization composed entirely of volunteers. We work discreetly within the community to provide emergency aid. This aid includes rental payments, deposits, utility payments, motels, transportation, food, gas, and car repairs. We keep our administrative and financing and our fundraising expenses to less than 3%, so that 97% of all the revenue we have is used for emergency aid. We provide help to anyone in need without regard to race, religion, or age. We volunteer in pairs and we make home calls to determine what the immediate need is. We collaborate with many of the community organizations and churches and the Ventura County Sheriff's Department to fulfill those needs. Our focus is to help with emergency need and then address the underlying problems and then we can refer people to the appropriate government or community agencies. Deputy Joe Preciado recognizes us as a vital component of his Project Hope in Camarillo. Our request for community block grant will help ensure that we're able to continue to fulfill emergency needs in Camarillo. Thank you. I also gave you each a brochure, so I'm real stingy with them because we're on a tight budget. Do you have any questions at all?
Yes, Bill?
Yeah, Mary Lane, two questions. First of all, do you provide the services you talked about outside of Camarillo? Is it countywide, or you just limit yourself to a geographical?
We're limited to Camarillo. 95% of our money stays in Camarillo, of that 97%. A very small amount does go to help other conferences within Ventura County. They'll call us if they're out of money, if they need help with paying rent for somebody, then we sometimes help.
When you say other conference, you mean other St. Vincent de Paul?
Other St. Vincent de Paul's and other churches.
Yeah.
We help a lot of churches here in Camarillo and other organizations too. But on a very small amount, we do help with, but it's all within Ventura County.
Okay. The other question I have, you mentioned a number of volunteers. Do you have approximate number of volunteers are involved in this?
We have approximately 20 volunteers.
So
There's probably, I think there's 10 of us that do home calls.
Okay.
The other people help with fundraising. Because we have no church allocated funds. All of our funds come from donations. We have a couple of private grants that we've written. And then we do our own fundraising. Candy sales, dinners, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Charlotte?
Yes, I have several questions. First of all, if we decide to fund you, you can be generous with these because you'll have to change them. It says here you receive no local, state, or federal government funding.
Absolutely, absolutely. These were written and donated by the person who wrote them, so we didn't pay for these. But I'm still stingy with them.
My question is with regard to some of the numbers that you have given us. It said that your help is not just for homeless, but for working poor. Is that
yes,
correct? It says you helped 500, and then the question is total number of persons or households estimated to have been served in 14-15, and it says 517. Is that persons or households?
Persons.
And were all of those Camarillo people?
Yes. Well, I would say 95% of them are.
Okay. And then it says, the reason I asked that, it said 27 were county-wide, so those are the some of them that are not from Camarillo?
Right.
And when you talk to people about Camarillo, are you talking to the greater Camarillo area or the incorporated area? Because we're the incorporated area.
I would say the greater Camarillo area, if they have a Camarillo address. So am I talking, are you talking about the estates? We have very few calls there. Am I talking way out in Santa Rosa?
Well, the Heights, you might have some calls.
Yes, we do have calls in the Heights.
And those are not in the incorporated city.
Part of it.
Yes, I don't think we have kept track of all of those, those kind of statistics in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments?
You did have a question. You had asked about the funding for the homeless shelter.
Yes.
I did talk to Los Angeles, to our parent organization. They didn't apply for a grant because there will be no winter shelter next year. And that's why they didn't apply for it.
Well, they're not involved, but there might be one.
There was $50,000 of their money that went to this year's shelter.
Yeah. But who knows?
You're right. You're right.
Well, one last thing. I had a chance to speak with you about this, and I know that you're tied in with Mr. Preciado, one of our favorite deputies, that knows most of the homeless in our city and can make referrals and so on, and he knows who to call. But you also found out some of the things that we were doing about doing vouchers ourselves for hotels this year, and possibly who knows next year and so on. So we can take the homeless off the street during cold weather and wet weather.
Right.
But we again appreciate all you've done and how you're working with Officer Preciado.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my understanding that was only until the end of March, the funds that you have now. And it was only in wet weather. We still have other people who we do help.
Or cold.
Okay.
Wet or cold.
Or cold.
Or cold. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Kevin.
Yeah, just real quick. I don't know if you have this statistic, but do you break down gender that you help? The percentage at all or anything close to that? Or is there any trend or anything that you're aware of with that?
Gender. If I went through our statistical reports, I would be able to tell you the number of single men that we help. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or
single women.
Yeah.
I would be able to. I can't tell you off the top of my head. No, we do not keep that specific. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But I'd be glad to call you with that.
Sure, I was just curious. That's
Okay.
all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for
You're very
coming.
welcome.
Steve Dwyer. Steve, you're with, let's see. You'll have to tell us.
Sorry, I probably omitted. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm the executive director with Habitat for Humanity here in Ventura County. So I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the low-income homeowners that we've been able to support here in Camarillo with some of the critical updates that they need to their homes over the last 3 years. So to give you some statistics, Habitat started this program, which we call our Preserve a Home program, to provide critical updates and home repairs to low-income homeowners in the county about 4 years ago. This year, as we complete the fiscal year, we will end up supporting about 100 residents across the county over those years, 35 of which will be right here in Camarillo, which is kind of an outsized percentage relative to population. And that's a testament to your support through CDBG funds. That allowed us to kind of ramp up in Camarillo very quickly a couple of years ago, and we have a steady pipeline of low-income homeowners who require a wide variety of things, many of which allow them to age in safely in homes that they've owned for a long time, and they simply want to stay there. We do a lot of work in your mobile home parks. In many situations, we provide things like security doors, update and repair steps, provide ramps so somebody can have safer access, do a lot of window replacements. In, for instance, Casa del Norte, right next to the fields, single pane aluminum windows. Some of the mobile homes have had actually half-inch gaps around the windows, and a simple update to dual pane energy efficient windows not only saves them funds from an energy efficiency point of view, but makes their home environment much more healthy for them with all the dust in the air. So we are very appreciative. We appreciate the fact that your staff has been excellent to work with, and we want to say thank you again on behalf of those that we've supported and those that we hope to support in the years coming. I will tell you that across the county, we see building support for this program largely related to the cities that have an aging demographic. I'll include myself in that. You know, as the years go by, we're going to find in this county that we have people who have bought their home many, many years ago. Kids like my kids can't afford maybe to purchase a home here, but those that did 30, 40, 50 years ago simply want to stay there and age in place. And so I think this program is going to not only build here in Camarillo, but across the county, and you all have been a real front mover in terms of this movement, in terms of funding for us. So thank you.
Questions?
I have a question.
Comments? Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, when you do a project for, let's just call them a client, you do a project for a client, do you get a lot of feedback from them? In other words, do they tell you, you know, gee, thanks a lot, you did a great job, or do they, how is that whole relationship that you build with your, I'll call them clients?
Yeah, actually, the relationship is excellent, and we get a lot of extremely positive feedback. And in fact, we've done so much work in the Casa del Norte park now, because after we did a few, everybody saw the great work going on. They all talked to their neighbors, and the pipeline just kept building. And it's that we also get a lot of very positive feedback from some of our partner agencies. We get referrals from people like Meals on Wheels or the Council on Aging, who refer people to us because they know of the work we're doing, and they have people come in their doors and realize that the need might actually be more of a tangible building construction type need, as well as sometimes obviously the needs are more personal related. So we get terrific feedback. We know we have a rather dissatisfied person here in the city of Camarillo. It's very much an anomaly in our view. We've worked for 8 months to try to satisfy that individual, including making an offer that exceeded her own contractor's estimate to completely redo all the work that Habitat did. So we're sort of stymied there a bit, but we have worked very, very hard to satisfy that particular individual. But in our work, that is very much an anomaly over the 4 years that we've been running this program.
So in Del Norte, you've had very much success and more people coming asking for help.
Absolutely. In fact, we've already got it's quite a timing issue. We start with an application process where they apply to us, we verify their income and so on. We go do an assessment of the home and agree with the homeowner on the work that we will do, and then with your staff agree on the estimate for funding that work. And then because we have a pipeline and funding throughout the county, we sort of schedule them as we go, and you know, it can take maybe 2 to 3 to 4 months between application to actual work, and we find that we're in fact we're getting referrals from Ojai now. We just did some projects in Santa Paula. We're going more and more around the county and building a portfolio of needs here in the county.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other questions? Thank you. Next, Ellen Wilson. I'm sorry, Wilson. Am I correct? Johnson, I'm sorry.
We're even close.
Am I? Okay.
You're up.
Good evening. I'm here along with Gail Beltramo, who's on our Community Advisory Board and represents the city of Camarillo very well through the work we do at Livingston. And I wanted to start off with just a brief story of a typical patient who we care for. This is an individual who had a wound on her left foot that would not heal. It kept getting worse, and ultimately she ended up being hospitalized because of gangrene and sepsis. She had to have a portion of her foot amputated and was then discharged from the hospital from St. John's Pleasant Valley, and at that point on our care. And this is where Livingston steps in to do home health. We were able, over a, I think it was, 17-week period, we did 59 skilled nursing visits to make sure that that wound healed. We had a skilled wound specialist who stepped in and tracked the healing. We also had physical therapy involved to make sure that she regained mobility And we also did education and health information for her because she had diabetes, which led to the severity of the healing process and everything else. So you can see it's a very complicated process, but it's also something that we have been doing since 1947. Livingston has been here in this county, like I said, from 47, and we've been providing home health and hospice and respite care to people throughout the county. And obviously the funding that you all have been generous enough to provide through CDBG goes directly to people who are strictly within the city of Camarillo. We are part of a continuum of care that generally starts in the hospital and then moves to the home. And we step in at that point to make sure that people remain home, that they do not return to the hospital, that they heal, recover, and are able to rehabilitate in their home where they would prefer to be. We work closely with St. John's Pleasant Valley as well as a number of Camarillo health care providers. Our quality of care is very good. Our rehospitalization rates are 8.15%, which compares to a national rate of 11.86%. We also have 98% of our home health patients who would recommend our services to family and friends. We've just seen prolific increase in the care we provide because of the Affordable Care Act, which has been great in that it allows many more people to receive insurance through Medi-Cal. However, a lot of these folks are low-income individuals who have long neglected their health care. So by the time we get to them, it's a very significant situation in trying to get them healed and back on track. We expect that this will continue for another 2 to 3 years, and hopefully in time they will be able to do preventative health care, and we should start to see a decline in the cost and numbers of people that we're seeing through this subsidized care program.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions? Charlotte?
I have some questions. Last year, I think, was the first year we funded you.
It was actually the second year. The first year, you all put a little special dispensation for us.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That was kind of just leading up to my question. It wasn't my question. I'm trying to get a handle on what percentage of the services you provide are paid for by insurance, and what does the subsidization pay for?
Okay, so the subsidized care portion that I'm talking about is the portion that is not covered through the insurance, meaning that, so for this program, I strictly pull out Medi-Cal patients because we have an immediate verification of low income. Medi-Cal reimburses extremely low rates, so they're considered underinsured. Nobody else in the county will pick them up for home health. So the portion that your funding goes to is strictly the care that we provide beyond what Medi-Cal reimburses. So last year we provided subsidized care for 63 people, let me double check my number, 63 people in the city of Camarillo, and the cost to us outside of whatever reimbursement, beyond that, the cost to us was almost $77,000. So the money that you're going toward is Medi-Cal, let me back up. Generally, they will tell us that we can do 6 home visits, and they won't fund beyond that. Well, if the wound isn't healed, if the person is still having issues with their IV or PICC line or that kind of thing, we continue to provide the service. And at that point, that's where the subsidized care kicks in.
Thank you.
Other comments? Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm at an age where I have dealt with, and a lot of my friends and colleagues are dealing with, aging loved ones, if you will. So a program like this, I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but a program like this is very needed, and I just want to thank you for what you do for this, because it's really important, and we all know where we are in our lives now, and sometimes we all need help.
Yeah, that's true. And thank you very much for your comment, and thank you for the support that you have given us.
I'd like to thank you very much because you were with my mother prior to her death. And so you were there to help us, comfort us, and everything else in the world with the needles and other things too. And so I really appreciate what you guys do for the community.
Yeah. And, with hospice, it goes on beyond the death of the loved one. So we're there regardless.
Thank you.
You need.
Okay.
Bill?
I was just going to say that I personally had, my wife had reason to use Livingston services a couple years ago. And we found it to be marvelous. And well-trained people, lovely ladies come in and really do a nice job. So
Thank you. That's lovely to hear. That's what I would hope that we would hear every time. But we invest a lot in training and making sure that people know the best practices and technology and all that other stuff. But that's a whole different aspect of fundraising.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Amber Vagonia. Oh, you're representing 211. I found it.
211.
211.
And I'm sorry, you probably couldn't read my writing. It's Amber Segovia.
Segovia.
Yeah, I apologize for that. Thank you guys for your time tonight. I am a 211 call center manager, and I'd like to thank you guys for your past support. The beauty of 211, I'm sure you guys all know, is a lot of people don't know how to connect to all these wonderful services, and all they really need to simply do is call 211, and we have a wonderful, loving, trained staff, and we kind of talk it out with the people in need, and we will connect them with whomever, would best help them. A lot of the people here in the room get calls from our callers constantly because they don't know how to connect to them. This past year alone, we helped close to 1,600 Camarillo residents, and we're very proud to say that. We help in many different areas: housing, mental health, addiction, income, support assistance, family and community support, healthcare, legal, food, meals, just basic information services. You never know what type of call we're going to receive. Utility assistance, clothing, personal health needs. You name it, we get calls for it, and we do our best to assess the caller's situation and connect them with whomever would hopefully help get them in a better situation.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Anyone?
We all know 211.
We know you. We know you very well. We're here when you started.
We're very proud of what we do, and thank you for your support.
And you should be.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good night, you guys.
Tammy Glenn from Caregivers.
Oops.
Foot caught. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. And, on our wall at the caregiver's office are 149 partner programs that we work with in the community, and just about every single one of the ones that you're entertaining funding for tonight are part of our community that we work with to serve seniors. Caregivers, you may know, is one of the original pilot programs for volunteer caregiving in the nation. It started here in Ventura County, and we're currently serving 494 seniors and about 454 volunteers. Just under 20% of those are part of our Camarillo community that we serve. And the hallmark of what we do and what makes Caregivers so unique is that we match a volunteer from the community with a senior who is looking to live independently through end of life in their home, aging in place, which you've obviously made a huge investment in here in this community. And someone asked me recently what our turnover rate is. Our seniors are with us from the time they enroll, as 60 and over is the age range, until end of life, hopefully. And we have a record and a statistic of 88% of our service base living independently through end of life. It's a wonderful model of service. There's no fee for the service. We're completely supported by donors and foundations and corporations and some public funding like what you offer. And it's phone support and it's case management throughout various situations where somebody is hospitalized or whatever the journey is that one is experiencing through aging. I just want to tell you that we've been serving Camarillo for almost a decade. Last year was our first year of funding from the city. And I think that really sends a message not only to our seniors, but it's a testimonial about our volunteers and the good work that they're doing in the community. Thank you so much for supporting caregivers.
Thank you again for. We know how important what you do to the public. We know. We've been told.
Well, that's good.
Any other questions or anything? Bill?
No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have no other cards this evening, but we do have two other groups. I'm going to make sure they're not here. Oasis? Is Oasis here? No? How about RAIN program? No? Okay, we are now through with our public testimony at this time, unless there's someone else who wishes to address us. And I close the public hearing. Comments?
Your Honor, I think that they've done a really good job. I think that it's amazing to me every year that I've been up here, the amazing organizations that we have that really help people that really need help. And with that, I could certainly support this, and I'd like to make a motion, if unless there's some comments that anybody else would like to make.
I have a question,
Sure.
if I can
Go
do
right
the
ahead.
question
Yeah,
first.
absolutely.
And this is of staff. I know it's hard to take a finite number and divide it up, and particularly when you add a new line item this year. And so, me and my numbers here, I had to figure out who was losing and who was gaining. And the one that seemed to me that lost more than others was the ombudsman. I have a cold, sir. You know what I mean. And so I guess I just need a little rationale for why you picked and chose who gained and who lost.
We tried our best to keep the allocations as consistent with prior funding allocations to the best extent practicable. And with the ombudsman, we do realize that we did provide them with $77,448 in fiscal year 14-15. Then it went up to $8,000 in the current fiscal year, and we anticipate that it will go back down to $7,000 is what the recommended funding is. But if you feel strongly and want to include in a motion to adjust those numbers, we're open to that.
So you felt that the last year was an anomaly for them, but everyone got more last year.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, Oasis got 5,000 instead of 4,000. Everyone else seemed to be in the 500 range, up 400, down 550, and that one just took $1,000 hit. And I just wanted to make sure that, one, it wasn't a mistake and that everybody was treated fairly, or if there was some reason, did the number they were serving go down or something?
I think the number they're serving is going up.
Well, that's what kind
They're
of
getting older.
That's what I was thinking as he was talking about it. So I want to make sure that although I guess we've only got a certain amount of money we can spend, but I just want to be fair, I guess. Every single one of these programs are great. I agree with Mr. Kildee. I mean, you could...
Mrs. Buck is going to share some additional information on this.
Yes, if I can just add that in the attachment to the staff report where I have that chart that shows all of the allocations over the previous years, it doesn't show other organizations that have received funding. It only lists organizations that applied for funding this year. So last year we may have had more organizations that applied for funding, or excuse me, prior years had more applicants. So last year, because we had fewer applicants, each organization could get more money. Does that make sense?
Oh, and I understand, and I can see that, but what I'm questioning is why that particular organization took a bit bigger hit on a cutback. It got hit twice as much as everyone else.
There is no particular reason. We just tried to divvy up the funding in the most equitable fashion we could. So if we made what you feel to be an unfair allocation for that and the council wants to increase it, that's fine with staff.
I just think everyone should share. They're all great programs. And as Mrs. Craven said, we're gaining more and more senior citizens.
Well,
and I think
caregivers went up, it looks like.
Caregivers went up.
Yeah, caregivers.
Oasis, rain did go down as well.
So did,
Oasis.
I'm sorry, no, rain didn't go down. Well, it went down, but it went by the 500, so it's up 482, down 5, down 450.
Interface went down 5,000.
Interface went down 5,000, but we fund them somewhere else too. Then it's down 8, then it's down 1,000, and then it's up 68. So they asked for 7 and got 68. So I guess I was just trying to understand the fairness of it all. And I think one of the reasons I homed in on Ombudsman is we're getting so many of these home care facilities that I worry about them not being regulated and watched. And I think that's not only for the seniors that are in there, but for the public in general and our community in general, because we've gotten complaints in neighborhoods where they've had neighborhood homes.
I've got a question, and that is the Ombudsman's program funded by other governmental agencies as well? I assume it is.
You'd have to ask.
Yes.
7, not 68.
And so, in fact, I believe probably the bulk of their money comes from other agencies.
That's correct.
Down 1,000. Other than Interface.
800.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
That's a good job.
I just wanted to be fair, and I think because of that concern that we've had in other topics about all these home care facilities and the fact that we can't regulate them. And
My concern about the people in these care facilities is they're there because they're not able to take care of themselves.
Yep.
And this is the agency that goes in unannounced once a week and makes sure they're operating correctly. And that the patients are not being abused or all the things you read about in the paper. So they're one I've gone to bat for years to get as much as we can, because the people, the others are sad stories. Maybe a woman's wandering on PCH, which is not in Camarillo, and needs help. But she's not in a facility because she cannot care for herself. Maybe in a situation where she's tied to her wheelchair so she can sit up. And there are a lot more of those people in those facilities than you'd like to have. But they really need somebody to go in and make sure that those care facilities are being operated properly.
so I think what I would ask is if maybe we can just
find a way to get them.
Yeah, or divvy it, make it more fair, as far as the cuts, more of an even
Yeah, they
ratio.
took a bigger cut than most of
About
the
double
others.
of everyone else.
Well, they may also have some other sources of funding as well.
Well, that's why I asked staff the question, why they funded them different, and they told us there wasn't a reason.
Well, the answer was that they do get funded by other agencies.
So do a lot of
Everybody else went up last year too, Mr. Little, if you look.
And a lot of these organizations gets funding from multiple places. So
Well,
that would.
But I think when he said he got funding from he was nodding from other government agencies, that was from other government agencies to go into the facilities in those cities. Is that right? They don't get other government agency funding from here. I mean, Oxnard doesn't pay them anything to come into ours.
So that's.
Okay, are you making any suggestions on how you can accommodate this?
Well, we have a new one that's getting almost everything they ask for.
Right, that's what just didn't seem quite fair, and then not being equal in the cut. So I think that's what I would ask of staff. Maybe we need to decide what we want to give the new one, and then have them equalize out. Other than
About 6,300, and then have Ombudsman get 7,500, and then it would be
okay.
We have a suggestion on the table, gentlemen.
I think that sounds good.
To go 6,500? 6,300?
Instead of
For St.
68?
Vincent de Paul.
instead of 68.
6,300?
Yeah.
And then
take
you
it
give
off.
an extra 500 to Ombudsman?
Yes.
Which would be.
Now remember, this is the first year in years, and well, we added caregivers, but before that, we pretty much didn't ever add anything. so-
Right. And never in at their beginning. You
Yeah.
can see
Why
when
don't
we
we
started
take a-
Livingston, we went in at like
Sorry, what?
2,000.
Time out, gang. What?
Why don't we take $100 from everyone and give it to them?
No.
That's really fair.
Well, you can do that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're not doing it equally, but to do it this way actually makes better sense because they asked for 10 and got 7. No, I'm sorry.
They didn't ask for 10.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
That's the request.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah, I thought you were talking about St. Vincent.
Well,
St. Vincent asked for 7 and got 6,800, so they got all but 200 of what they asked for.
well, then the next year, everyone's going to come in with higher requests and the.
But this is a brand-new program that's never been funded by the city, so we're cutting other ones that we have been funding in order to
We're
accommodate
not
this
cutting
new one.
anyone else. We're cutting because the federal government has got less money to give us this time.
Oh, that was only $2,000 or
It's
something.
4,000, I think.
Anyway, let's go around that. Do we want to say, got two options. One is Bill's option of cutting one from everyone, and another one is cutting 500 out of the other one. Now, I got to say one thing about St. Vincent, so you know. I talked to them at length to find out. They work with Preciado a lot, and finding homes for people in bad times. Not just bad weather, but other kinds of things too. And so there's no one paid in that group.
I understand that. But they asked for 7, and there was only 200 less than they asked for in what they're getting. There aren't other people. I mean, here asked for 8, they got 42. Asked for 10, they got 5. Asked for 82.50, they got 78. 5, it goes on like that. This is only $200 less, is what I'm saying.
If we take 3 from that to make it
Okay.
65,
Okay?
would that be acceptable too? I mean, to put up
Not to
to
me.
to make that
6,500 then?
that would be 6,500 then instead of 68,
Okay.
and that would give 3 more to ombudsman, and that would give them 73. Is there someone else, others you want to put some more in from other people?
Well, I think if we deducted $100, it gets a little bit odd numbers. Like
Well, it'd also mean they'd get
2,000 to
a whole lot more because there are more than 5 here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to, we want to be fair to everyone. They're all great programs, but that one just seemed, as I said, seemed to take a bigger hit.
So what I particularly could support if we go down to St. Vincent de Paul at 6,500.
Right.
And then we go up to ombudsman at 7,300. And I think those numbers kind of balance out the other numbers.
A little better.
I can go along with that. Bill? You okay with that, Charlotte?
Would you like me to make a motion?
I guess I'll have to be.
Okay. Someone make a motion for...
I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution setting forth the FY 2016-17 funding awards to the various agencies and programs based on the city's FY 16-17 CDBG funding allocation of $281,099, with the stipulation that St. Vincent de Paul will get $6,500 and ombudsman will be changed from $7,000 to $7,300.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Other comments? Please vote. That passes 5-0. Staff, you did a good job. Overall, it's great. That was great. Okay, move to the next item. Item number B. Introduce an ordinance amending Chapter 1704.04 sign regulations and Section 19.18.150 signs. Who has that?
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Assistant City Attorney Davis will be presenting this item tonight.
Joe, do you want to power it up? Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. Before you tonight for consideration are proposed amendments to the city's sign code to address certain non-commercial signs, particularly during an election period, which is very appropriate given all that's going on around us and soon to be within our city as well, and some minor changes to some of our subdivision sign regulations as well. The subject of this ordinance has been before the City Council twice for study sessions, so a lot of my comments tonight are to help inform what's left of the public, I guess, about what we're doing and why we're making these changes at this time. The city has a sign code. It's Chapter 17.04 of the city's municipal code that basically is a compilation of all our regulations of signage. It attempts to do a very difficult thing because signs involve the First Amendment, and so there are competing interests from the city and the business point of view. You want to have identification of uses. We want to allow opportunities for displays of messages, but at the same time, we don't want too many signs because they can create aesthetic impacts and also impact safety. So we don't want that image on the lower right side, the kind of Blade Runner type look in our city. The way we've typically done it through our sign code regulations that we found is the most efficient and expeditious way to regulate signage is create certain categories or types of functions of signs, and then depending on that type or function, we exempt them or permit them, and then establish certain what we call content neutral regulations regarding number, size, design, and location. So here are 3 different examples of what we would call a category or classification: a directional sign, an ideological sign, the peace symbol, and then a political sign. The existing legal framework is that there's a rule that sign codes have to be content neutral. The problem that's always faced us as drafters of some of these sign regulations is, well, what exactly does that mean? Courts have not always been consistent in it, and there were really kind of 2 competing views. There was sort of what we call the rigid or literal test for content neutrality, which was basically if you have to look at a sign and read it to tell whether it complies with the sign code, then you've got a content-based regulation. And when you have a content-based regulation, it's subject to what the courts call strict scrutiny. Other courts took a more pragmatic view, including the federal courts that govern California, the Ninth Circuit, that if you can justify the reason for a content regulation and didn't adopt it specifically to disagree or to regulate a particular message, then it was viewed as content neutral. Well, last year we had a case that kind of clarified things a little bit and certainly shifted the pendulum more to the right side, the literal, more rigid test in a case called Reed v. Town of Gilbert. Basically, the case in pictures here is that the plaintiff in the case was a church. They didn't have a fixed location for their services, so they would go around town and put up these kind of directional signs, or what that city called a qualifying event sign on the left here. The town had certain regulations for those. They had certain regulations for political signs. So based on the content of the sign, they could be different sizes. So the qualifying event sign for the churches were limited to 6 feet. Political signs, on the other hand, could be up to 32 feet. The time periods differed. The directional signs for these qualifying events were only 2 hours before the event, and then they had to be taken down 1 hour after the event, whereas the political signs could be up for 60 days before and 15 days after. So you're seeing very clearly different rules for both types of what we call non-commercial speech. The town also had another category of signs that they called ideological signs, which were also non-commercial signs, and there were also non-campaign signs. These could be larger than the qualifying event signs, but not quite as big as the political signs, and they could be displayed for unlimited periods of time and no numbers. So this was a city that was very liberal in terms of the signage that they allowed, but because the qualifying event signs that this church had were very small and, again, could only be up for short periods of time, it created problems for the church. And when the town ordered them or cited them a number of times for these qualifying event signs, they sued. The Supreme Court looked at it, looked at the city's sign code, and said, your sign code is content-based because when you have a content-based regulation, you're applying a law to a particular kind of speech because the message, qualifying event, ideological, political, and you're creating your rules based on that. When it's content-based, it's presumptively unconstitutional unless there's a compelling interest involved, and also the regulations have to be narrowly tailored. And when the courts apply strict scrutiny, it's almost invariably a defeat for the government agency because strict scrutiny is really, really hard to overcome. So the upshot of all this is unless there's really a compelling reason, you can't do preferential treatment based on the content of a message, at least in the non-commercial context which this case involved. So once this case came down, we began to look through our sign code and see where we might have some issues. And ironically, it was with our campaign signs, because we do make a content-based distinction between a campaign sign and then other non-commercial signs like the one on the right here, the Save the Whale type of sign. Under our code currently, with the campaign sign, you can have one such sign for any candidate or issue during an election. There are fixed sizes for it in the residential zone, 6 square feet, and they can be up to 32 square feet in non-residential zones. And then there's a removal period. With respect to what we would just say non-commercial signs, although it can include campaign signs, the city allows 2 freestanding signs at all times in residential areas. These can be up to 6 square feet and 4 feet in height. And there is no time limit for these. We also allow window signs in all zones, both residential and commercial too. This is a requirement under a much earlier Supreme Court case where a city tried to preclude all yard signs. The court said, no, yard signs are important. Medium, you have to allow some opportunities, so we've always done that. And because there was obviously a demand during election season for additional opportunities, we created what we called the campaign sign regulation to allow more, not to limit speech, but to actually allow it. But the problem is, because we call them campaign signs and because we only allow them if there's a particular message, which is, are you for or against a candidate or a ballot measure, then we in fact have a content-based regulation. So in order to address that, we had to come up with a content-neutral manner of doing it, and what we've settled on and are proposing tonight in the amendment is that we establish what's called an election period, where we're going to allow additional opportunities for basically just non-commercial signs. It's going to be a period 90 days before elections, and again, because we can't regulate by content and don't want to over-proliferate with signs, we have crafted a limitation on the number of signs permitted, so 8 additional non-commercial signs will be permitted in each parcel in the city during this election period. So in residential zones, it's the same sizes as currently exist for campaign signs, 6 square feet, 4 feet tall. And then in all other zones, again, the same regulation in terms of both the size. There's a little tweak that we made, and I'll explain in a second, about the height limitations on the signs in other zones, that we're requiring them to be no higher than 4 feet off the ground where the bottom of the sign starts, and a height of 10 feet at the top. Here's our typical residential yard sign, non-commercial sign up to 4 feet, again 6 square feet in area. This will help explain a little bit why on the signs we're permitting in other zones, why we have the 4-foot minimum at the base. Here you can see typically a 32 square foot sign is 4 by 8. That's kind of the standard thing that you can get from different companies. So keeping it 4 feet off the ground keeps it lower, and certainly anything that's 4 by 8 is going to be less than 10 feet off the ground. What we wanted to avoid by having a 4-foot base here is that signs didn't go up way high, because we're allowing 32 square feet. So you could have a 2 by 16 sign or a 1 by 32 sign really high up. So again, with the 4-foot requirement for the bottom of the sign to begin, it keeps it lower and a little bit squatter too. Okay? So that's the reason why, with respect to those signs only, there is a base. Otherwise, all of our signs in the sign code have height limits, and it's measured from the grade where the sign is to the top. So it's a very easy measurement to follow. Okay? The other change in going through the code, it's not really based on content things, just when we were going through the code, we were looking at our subdivision sign regulations and decided that really subdivision signs are part of an approval of a project. When you're approving a subdivision, that's when you've created the need for these kind of signs, and we currently have directional identification and sale signs for subdivisions. What staff is proposing in the ordinance amendment is to move them to Chapter 19.16 of the code, that's the residential plan development zone. We propose to eliminate off-site directional signs. The code currently allows several of them. We feel that with GPS and other kinds of electronic mapping systems, that people can find projects without the need to have large signs scattered throughout the town. We're not changing the identification signs. That's a sign that just says there's a new subdivision here. But we are reducing the identification sign would be this kind of sign. And we're reducing the size and height of what we call a sale sign, just a sign that's basically promoting there are new homes for sale in an area. And here are the proposed changes. It's really that we felt that the sale sign was just too large. It was permitted to be up to 100 square feet, which we felt was very large. So we're proposing it to be 32 square feet, similar to those other non-commercial signs we were talking about. And these could be no more than 12 feet in height instead of the current 25. Also, we wanted to make sure that the sign is in close proximity to the actual subdivision, that it's not really an off-site sign, that it has to be adjacent to the lots being offered for sale, and that there's some discretion for the Community Development Department to select the precise location in the subdivision. So that's really all we're doing in the several pages that constitute the ordinance. We're available for questions, and recommended action tonight would be to introduce for first reading the proposed ordinance.
Bill, questions? Bill?
I got a question. Now, just so I understand the numbers, we're going from one temporary freestanding sign. Well, back up. Right now, we allow 2 non-commercial signs for anyone who wants them on the residential area.
That's correct.
So they could say support.
It could be a candidate sign. It could just be a general message. Have a nice day. Save the whales. Support any of your the groups that you just gave contributions to. Yes.
Okay.
So we allowed those 2 freestanding ones, and also homes could have a window sign.
And now,
as well.
now we're going to, and then during the campaign, we allowed 1 sign.
During
the campaign before, right now, we allow 1 sign?
Under the current regulations, we allow 1 sign per candidate or issue.
Okay.
So if you had in a crowded field with 20 candidates, you could potentially have 20 signs on the property.
If you supported them all.
Which
see
means
how
you,
you vote, too.
you really don't have any mind of your own.
Any other questions or comments?
Is that clear, Councilmember?
Yeah,
Little?
I understand that.
Okay.
Now, we're limiting those 2 now instead of the
So
number.
instead of an unlimited number, although I don't think we've ever had a situation where we've had, 20 or 30 signs, but basically the rule now would be on a residential property, you still have those 2 non-commercial signs, which could be also
Candidate
campaign,
sign.
and then we're allowing 8 opportunities.
So you could have 10.
A total of 10, correct,
Okay.
on residential properties, 8 on all other properties, with the idea that, if they really had 10 issues or 20 issues that they wanted to address, then they have to change out their signs occasionally, but we don't think that that's a huge burden.
And for commercial, that's the same numbers.
Commercial has the same number, the 8 additional opportunities. Commercial properties also have the window signs, and commercial properties, the reason why they don't have 2 freestanding signs is because they all have permitted signs. So they might have a wall sign, they may have a post sign, and if they wanted to, they could plaster over their Home Depot sign and put a candidate sign up. So that's permitted under our code. You can convert a commercial message to a non-commercial message, so that's why they're not typically allowed freestanding signs.
But the max you can have on a residential site would be 10.
Will be 10, correct, under the proposed regulations.
That seems like a lot of signs.
Kevin?
Yeah, Don, the illuminated versus non-illuminated sign, let's say somebody puts up a sign in their yard next to a like a landscape light. Is that permitted to do that? I mean, a permanent landscape light, let's say.
If the light's permitted, yes.
Okay. So if it's a permitted
Light's
light,
permitted.
you can, yeah.
Right.
I think it's talking about illuminated light that's lit up itself.
But the sign itself cannot have a window,
Right.
illumination.
If the light was installed with appropriate building permits that were required,
So in a residential area and someone puts in the little Malibu lights, they have to come get a permit?
no. Not
Or
for
a
Malibu
solar
lights.
light?
No, those don't require permits.
Thank you.
So could you put it in front of one of those?
Yes.
Yeah, probably good.
I'm not sure how much those would illuminate a sign, but
I think you're talking about illuminating the sign by itself, illuminating, yeah, not something shiny on it, but it illuminated the sign. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see, where am I? Yeah, I'm going to open, no questions, nothing going on. I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. It is a public hearing opening. I have one card. Matt Lormer.
You know, during the last election, Mr. Morgan was the one who said he was going to introduce more legislation. Seems like he's going ahead and do it. Regarding signs, what if it's in a window and it's not, windows are different size, they put a candidate puts a window and a sign, that affect the ordinance. And the idea, you're only going to allow, what, 10 signs? So if you have the president running, you have congressmen, city councilmen, we're just going to allow 10? I mean, that doesn't seem like America. That's the country we live in. I mean, we live in this country, and at election time, people should be able to put signs on their property, and you guys now are taking away people's rights, and that's really bad. This is unbelievable that you take away a person's right during election time. It's one thing if people are going to put signs in their property all year long. I agree with that. That makes sense. But election time, you know there's going to be more than 10 candidates. Let's be serious here. This is insulting, and it's a power grab by the city council. The idea of the last election, Mr. Morgan was showing up behind me. I put a sign, they said, did you get permission from the wife? No. Did you get permission from the husband? Go back and forth. The idea is 10 signs is ridiculous. Why limit it? This is a person's property. I mean, there is enough regulations already in this country. And the idea that now we're going to stop people's free speech, it's unacceptable. We should have the right to put I agree, one candidate sign per property, no problem. But what happens if you got a condo complex? I mean, you're going to just limit 10 signs because the whole complex is owned by one order. You've created a lot of problems here. Okay. So there's a lot of things that are under consideration here. But the idea, again, 10 signs, really? We're going to, why did you come up with this regulation? Are you trying to stay in power longer or what? I mean, it's seriously wrong. Limiting 10 signs, you know, you're worried about that. I mean, there's a lot of things to worry about. Your crime is up 18%, assaults are up 33%, and we're worried about people and democracy in this country. I mean, 10 signs. Imagine 10 signs, and because it doesn't look nice. You know something? That's what this country is about, competition. Maybe we should only allow 10 brands of cars to be sold because too many cars is too much competition. How about only 10 places you can buy soda pop? How about only 10 places you can park your cars? How about only 10 places you can cut your hair? How about only 10 places you can buy your suit? How about only 10 places you can have your teeth done? That's not what this country was built at. You guys and the people at home and the people in the audience, so really think about what the city council is about to do. It's not right. Elections are the people's choice, not government's choice. And you're taking away the people's choice. All right? Thank you.
Okay, we have no other cards. Any comments from the board?
Yeah, I want to make
I
a
have a question of the city attorney or the assistant city attorney. Can you go over it for us again? How many did we have in the past, and aren't we adding signs, not taking signs away? Can you give us those numbers again?
In the past, the campaign sign regulations permitted one sign per candidate or issue, so there was no cap. Okay, what I guess Mr. Larimer didn't understand is that the Supreme Court said we can't call them campaign signs anymore, so we can't say one per candidate or issue anymore. That's now illegal thanks to our Supreme Court. So they thought they were expanding speech, but it makes it more difficult to regulate it when you have that. So we had to find we didn't want unlimited amounts of any kind of sign, so we felt it necessary to place some limits on it. That's not inconsistent. In fact, the county has a general size limit that's, I think it's either 72, it's somewhere between 70 and 90 square feet total. So there are existing within this county, and for a long time, limitations on the amount of signage that you could have. So this is nothing unusual. It's been in place in the county and in a number of other cities for a long, long time. So we're trying to strike the balance between opportunities. And again, there would be at least 10 opportunities. There are a certain number of window signs depending on windows. So there's actually more depending on the size of your property. Add a few more window signs in there. So it's something above 10. Certainly for all properties.
Just to clarify, window signs do not count among the 10.
That's correct. We're only talking about freestanding signs in the front of a property. That's all. Window signs remain subject to general one per window, or in the commercial properties, there's a 25% coverage. If you'll recall, we went through that change too. So there are some limitations, but certainly every property could probably have several windows.
Another point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Don, so as opposed to the last election period, Mr. Lorimer could have 10 Matt Lorimer signs legally on a property this time, as opposed to the last election he couldn't.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So that we're not doing it. One, if somebody really likes a particular candidate, then yes, there's going to be actually a windfall for that candidate. So.
Very good.
If you lived on a corner, you could get them on all sides, you could do the whole thing.
Up to 10.
We're out of the content business. We're just giving numbers, and it's up to people to choose how they want to do it.
Right.
Well, thank you for straightening this out.
I need him to straighten out one more thing, if I might. Can you again tell us why are we doing this? Not because it's election time, but because of a Supreme Court
doing it
decision?
because of a Supreme Court case that came down last year. The Reed versus the Town of Gilbert case that said you really can't be regulating signs based on their content and providing preferential treatment with respect to non-commercial signs. So that's why we're doing it. We've been studying it, trying to look at what other communities have done. As I mentioned, there's been 2 study sessions on this. This is not something that we just jumped on and threw in for the campaign season. We started this last fall. In the analysis right after the case came down, and had those 2 study sessions to look at the different alternatives, and this is what we've come up with. Like anything in our sign code, if we feel we need more opportunities in the future, then amendments can be made too. That's not something that is fixed in stone forever.
Something sinister.
The rules for having permission to put the signs on property still exist, though.
That's correct.
Thank
yes, and not signs in the public right of way, too. That rule is still in place, too.
I have a question.
Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, Don, I just want to make sure that I understand the temporary non-commercial signs and 2 temporary freestanding non-commercial signs, which may be political in nature, but they may not.
Correct.
And you can have 2 of those. Like, let's say some guy's in favor of roller derby, for instance. He can have 2 signs saying, watch roller derby tonight at 5 o'clock if he or she...
It must be non-commercial. So
Is that right?
he couldn't advertise a commercial activity.
Right.
Can it be go Lakers?
Can it be nondescript? Can he just say, I support roller derby?
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
would
that's-
probably fall.
yeah.
under That's not
Yes.
promoting any kind of sale or product or something.
As long as he doesn't say whether
All
it's
right,
on a
go
TV station or whatever, but a nondescript sign.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Thanks, Don.
Okay.
Appreciate your straightening that out for us. Okay, now, we've closed the public hearing, of course. Now let's move on to next, not next time, but I need to request the title.
This is Ordinance 1122, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo, California, amending Camarillo Municipal Code, Chapter 17.04, sign regulations, regulating temporary, non-commercial sign opportunities during election periods, and Chapter 19.16, residential planned development zone regarding subdivision signs.
Move to waive further reading of the ordinance and introduce an ordinance amending Municipal Code Chapter 17.04 sign regulations and Section 19.16.160 signs of Chapter 19.16 residential plan development zone.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any other comments? Please vote. That motion passes 5-0. We're through with our public hearings at this time. Move on to departmental items. Who's handling this one?
Is it Ronnie?
This annexation number 6, the West Camarillo Community Facilities District number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is annexation number 8 to the West Camarillo CFD number 1. At the request of the property owner, this would authorize the annexation of tract 5671 into CFD number 1. Unlike the previous annexation, which was number 7, this one does follow a streamlined process in that the subject parcel is in the designated certain area for future annexation to the district. The owner of the property, Rancho Camarillo Associates LP, is now ready to annex into the district and has provided a consent form which is known as the Tract 5671 property or the proposed annexation number 8. It's been received and filed pursuant to the streamlined process. The annexation number 8 triggers a modification of the existing rate and the method of apportionment to that's included with the rates. That was a red folder item that was distributed to council earlier this afternoon. SDFA has provided evidence that this addition complies with the rate and method of apportionment and that the covenants in the documents relating to the 2004 bonds are all kept intact. One additional point of clarification: in the budget impact statement, it did state that costs associated with the annexation, it was a little unclear. Costs associated with this annexation are paid for by the district. And so the suggested action is a motion to adopt a resolution of West Camarillo Community Facilities District number one, approving annexation number 8. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Just
Bill?
This is just a continuation of what was put together back in the early 90s with the West, when we adopted the West Camarillo Mello-Roos district, and the argument was we can't bring them all into the district because it would encourage development in order to, so they wouldn't have to continue to pay. They'd sell off the land and develop it. So we had a sequential annexation program where it only got annexed when it was ready to be developed. And so we're still pursuing that policy. And I think it's been a good one.
Correct. And because this area is and was previously identified in the future annexation area, it's a streamlined process. Recall in the last one we did for number 7, that involved a public voting process. This one is different. It purely requires the consent of the property owner, which we've received, and then you take it through this process of adopting the resolution.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, Ronnie, does this have any effect of the bonds there?
Does not have any effect of the bonds. The fiscal impact of this as far as to the assessments is that generally the assessments will go down now because you've got more parcels over which you're spreading the future assessment.
Okay.
And we knew that. We knew that when we first did it years ago. As more came on, it would reduce others' contribution. When we first started doing that, Melrose. Other comments? Any motions?
I'll move to adopt a resolution of the West Camarillo Community Facilities District Number 1, approving Annex Number 8, Track 5671.
Second.
Yeah, motion is second. No other comments? Please vote. That motion passes 4-1. Ooh, surprised me. Okay, we have no other business tonight.
You
unless
have
someone-
to tell who the one is.
Oh, wait.
Who's the no?
Wait, what?
You have to say who the no was.
Oh, the no was Jan. I was going to say adjourn tonight, but we do have to go back into recess to our closed session. So we'll recess at this time to closed session.